Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault, and you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the recovery addict, and boy, do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy there.
Got the wrong guy, and the dog was biting him.
He roughened him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
Welcome back from lunch. Welcome back to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the recovery addict. Good to have you here today with me, especially, most of all, I might say, Mr. Adam Nusky. Adam Nusky like Husky says, yo, I did it. You were first, Adam. You once again, because I believe you're a repeat offender. I mean, a repeat winner in this category. But I believe you have won the internet once again. I know you have. Today I can see it with my own eyes. I have first-hand knowledge of your winnership. Congratulations, Adam. Can't wait to see what you do. It looks like right off the bat, as Emperor of the Internet, you're ousting Myra as CEO of the Internet and for breaking her promise not to win last Monday. She tried so hard not to win on Monday. I saw her pop in the room, and she waited and waited and waited, and finally she just had to say something, and she won then. But Adam, it's you today. So I guess for today we'll completely disown Myra as CEO. But I think your rulings on the internet only have effect for the time period where you were in charge. It resets when we regift, and because Myra's status as CEO supersedes your becoming, owner of the internet. I think tomorrow she's going to be CEO again. So I'm not sure if that's good news or bad news, Myra. But it did look like she was quite graceful in acknowledging your win. So it's always nice to see a peaceful transfer of power. O-Town Chill, good to have you here. Welcome, KX Star, Sharon McDonald, Golden Mom, Kevin. And not in that order, though. One Man's View. Clicked on him the wrong way. Let's see. Adam Nusky, Myra's here. Katrina, Denise, good morning. MCAT as well. I think my wife is making bread right now. I think she has the bread maker going for some homemade bread. Sounds delicious. Let's see. My Dog Murray is here. Someone gifted me a free membership. Yes, whoever it was, thank you. As well. Yes, you did just get a free membership, My Dog Murray. Welcome back. It's nice to see you in green with a nice aqua courthouse next to your name. It looks great. Let's see. Michelle Stark, Red Pen, MCAT, we got you. Natalie Lintz, good afternoon. On a globe, well, ain't this revolutin' predicament? A revolutin' predicament. I'm upgrading my drives and I found out that 1 terabyte of my photos... Found about 1 terabyte of my photos on my K drive, so I'm backing them up to an external drive. The K drive is a SATA Gen 1 equals snail speed. Yeah, so you're going to be there a while. Wow. Ivan, how did that... Did you... I need to trigger this. Hang on 1 second. I want the voice. I want the voice to read Ivan's comment. So give me just 1 second. I think I can force it to do that. Let's see. No, it won't let me. I thought I could go back and force it to read it, but I don't have that power apparently. So I'll just have to read it. It says, Ivan says, love all the addicts. I know I'm a troublemaker, but I respect this channel and RA so much. I respect this channel and RA so much. Thank you, Ivan. I can't tell you how much it helps my racing mind having a steady, constant vibe in the background. Cheers. Ivan, thank you so much. You are a constant on the channel as well. It's good to have you here with us. I appreciate the input you bring in, and your background and experience as well. It's awesome. So thank you so much for the generous super chat as well. Let's see. Red Pen, Ivan. Yes, we got you. MCAT Weather Watch. Good to have you here, Thomas. Laura. March 13. Georgia Culture, Christy Busby. Dutch Girl, I see you here. Danny Austin, Sharon McDonald, Ritz, Tar Healer. What are we going to do when this trial's over? I think we should do a meet and greet panel. Oh, no, that would be no fun. It would be no fun. Let's see, Red Pen, Georgia Culture, Laura, Miss Chris, Toxic Orchid is back. Good to have you, Toxic. Laura, Denise. I think we got most of the people in the morning. No, I missed morning roll call because I messed up the live stream this morning. You don't go back and watch it. It was a mistake. I made some mistakes. A little boo boo on the live stream. Katerina, good to have you here. Is the state winning? Not today, Katerina. Mary Murphy, Kenny Official. Let's see, Mini Duck, good to have you, Mini Duck. DH2 as well. Horse Sheet and Bananas, good to have you in green as well. I saw you got that gift today. Michelle Phillips, My Dog Murray, Sharon McDonald. Scanning for new names. Age of the Lost One. Golden Mom, Koski, missed this morning, but you're back. La 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 la. Welcome. Thanks for being here. G-Pet, Katerina, Warren, take your seat. Thanks, Warren, for being here. Miss Wolliver, Kids Can Draw. Thanks for being here, Mrs. Wolliver. Kenny Official. Okay, internet better be good. Adam, seriously, you've talked a big talk, so it better be good for sure. Let's see, we've got different. My regular feed, WLTX, decided to go all lawn criminals or whatever, lawn copyright on me, and they're doing all sorts of weird stuff. So
let's see how well this robot works. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious toy boat Sally sold seashells down by the seashore. Mock yeah I'm yeah bird yeah face rolling on the floor laughing cigarette smiling face with sunglasses red heart tumbler glass I love you hand gesture with light skin tone.
Hand gesture with light skin tone. I think it nailed it, Ivan. It got the whole supercalifragilisticexpialidocious perfectly. So it's worth every penny that I paid for it. So, that's awesome. Thank you very much for the super chat. Again, yet another generous super chat here this afternoon. Thank you, Ivan. Good to have you here. Let's see here. Just trying to make sure our court feed is going to come up as it should, when it should. So let's see here. Wait for it. There we go. Okay, it's working. I'm just going to get the audio going so we can hear the bailiff yell when it happens, because it should happen in about 9 minutes if they're on time, which they haven't been lately. So the big news today, if you missed this morning, is that the state basically says we've got 1 or 2 rebuttal witnesses left. One of them might be a little lengthy. It depends how long it goes. And then if the defense does not get to rebut the rebuttal witnesses, which the judge has said he's not inclined to do at this point, then the jury gets to go on a field trip in the afternoon, which is awesome because they've sat there in a boring class for a long time. It's about time they get a field trip, and they'll get to go to Moselle and check out the kennels themselves, and maybe ride the 4-wheelers. Do a little dove hunting, maybe look for some signs of hogs. All the things you do when you're at Moselle. Maybe they'll get to do those. I'm hoping they get the full tour, Maybe play some pool there in the gun room. It's all good. I don't know when the Delphi case is. It's probably not going to be live streamed, so we'll have to sort of watch it in the news after the fact. Let's see. Chandra, Suzanne, good to have you here. I do Photoshop plus 4K video editing, which needs a lot moved quickly, as well as transcoding, which can be an intensive process, as you no doubt know. Yes, that is very processor intensive. Let's see. One Man's View, congratulations on reaching your 1 month mark here on Best Crime Channel. Thank you very much, One Man's View. Good to have you here. It would not be the same without you. Wonderful. Let's see. What a day for me. Tied up in meetings. Fireworks, huh? Do you have a quick recap? It was interesting. Here's what I'll say. I think the state was in a better place, and I stole this from Law and Lumber. I think the state was in a better place this morning before they called any witnesses than we are right now. The witnesses they've had really haven't helped them a lot. Specifically, I'm thinking about the medical examiner. That was not just very beneficial. A couple of the other small ones, I mean, we're picking fights over, I mean, you've got a rebuttal witness over whether or not he had blue lights in a car he owned years and years ago. Okay, this is, I realize it goes to, it's discrediting him. It's, you know, it's making everyone know that Alex lied on the stand. That's what they're trying to do. And I guess that side is important for the prosecution, at least, to show that Alex lied on the stand today, that he lied to the jury because he talked about this on the stand. And if they can prove that he lied about something, then it works. And they did that. So I guess that was sort of important, but it just seems like they're talking about anything except the murder because they don't have any evidence of the murder directly. So let's see. I'd rather be day working is here. Should have been here 3 minutes ago, but we'll give you a pass. Jonathan Davenport as well. Samantha Terry, thank you for being here. TW, old dude, girl in Texas. Does anyone know if we'll be able to watch the jury field trip? I doubt it, but here's what I think, girl in Texas. I think every amateur news gatherer in the state is going to be trying to fly their drone over Moselle this afternoon to try to get some video of the jury. And I would not be surprised if the sheriff's like just orders people orders the sheriff to shoot down the drones or something. It could go anywhere. You know, after what we've seen in the courtroom, what happens at Moselle could be anywhere. It could be all, you know, we could have people hiding in the dog kennels taking pictures. I don't know what's going to happen. Let's see. DMB Secondus is here. Miss Chris as well. Maui Bell, good to have you here. Still need to talk to you about some coin roll hunting. Mini Duck, Sosi, First Lady A.
Bring the jury.
Bring the jury. That's not the real bring the jury yet. I'll show I get nervous. As soon as somebody plays bring the jury, I'm worried that I'm going to miss exactly what's happening, but we're just looking at the wall right here. So nothing going on. There's nothing to see behind the curtain right now. Let's see. Laura Ritz on Globe. Something just happened. Hang on. I'm getting there. I think it was a super sticker.
One Man's View just sent a super sticker with 2.
And it looks like Susan Blankenship and One Man's View, they came in at the same time, but only One Man's View played. Not sure why. But Susan Blankenship, thank you very much for the super chat, $2 super chat, and the One Man's View with the super sticker that was like the pounding gloves, the boxing, boom, boom. It's like a special handshake. I actually have a secret handshake with my youngest son. I tell him that if he doesn't do the handshake, then I can't really be sure that it's him because only the two of us know the handshake, and it's pretty fun. So, and part of the handshake is I get a hug at the end. That's just what you have to have. But love it. Looks good. Thank you very much for that, for your generous super chats and the sticker. Amanda Ray, how's it possible there's no real proof of anything? It's all circumstantial. It's yes, you can say the state sort of messed up the investigation. You could say this was like nearly the perfect murder. All we've got is circumstantial evidence, and the biggest item that we have, the biggest thing we have is that Alex was there right about the time we think they were killed, like just moments before. And that's the circumstantial evidence we're working towards. Of course, there's other items. The fact that they were killed with guns that were already on the property, using ammunition that was already on the property. There's a lot of other little circumstantial bits that come together. People that should have an alibi have been lying about it. I'm looking at you, Alex. But we'll see. How often does the jury get to go to the murder site? Apparently, in this judge's courtroom, anytime the other side says we'd like it, they'd say yes. Obviously, it has to be beneficial. I mean, there's sometimes that it just wouldn't help. In DB's case, the vehicle came to the jury. They thought it was important to show the vehicle to the jury, so they brought the vehicle to them. But here they wanted to take them out to the kennel so they can see for themselves. I honestly think that this is going to be better for the prosecution when they go out to the kennels, because it will put a reality into the pictures that they've seen that they didn't have before. So I think just going there without any explanation, without somebody saying, here's what you're viewing, here's where you should look, things like that. Just going and looking at the property and saying, here's the kennels, here's where Maggie's body was, here's where the feed room was, near all that. I think that will make it become real. Let's see. The phone expert ought to repent for what he did today. That was bizarre. You've got this guy who testified previously, but not as an expert, right? If I remember correctly. And then they bring him up again, present him as an expert in all these areas because he's watched YouTube videos, basically webinars, that he's been trained in. He's been certified as an expert, a handful of times, 6 times. I'm sure he's counting this last one as 7, for sure. But and then he goes ahead and testifies about throwing his phone in the hotel room and just tossing it around. I don't know. Nobody had asked him. He said, how can you be sure that the light didn't come on when it was upside down as you were throwing it away from you? And there's all these factors that should have come in. How did you do it with the light off and you just watched for any light that turned on? How did you know how many times it flipped? And if it didn't, if you were doing the same each time, you said he threw it 10 times each way. How can you need to be able to verify these things. And the defense was, first I was surprised that they agreed to let him as an expert. And I made a note of that. If you go back and watch the video, I'm like, here's your chance to object. But they didn't. They said no objections. And so the judge took that as whatever he says goes. And it was crazy. It was crazy. Throwing phone expert. I know a couple people that have much more experience throwing phones than him. My kid's one of them. Let's see. Misty Farley, welcome. Good to have you here. Still waiting on court to begin here. I'm still lost on the murder-suicide angle. Cough hiccup. Are you talking about Paul? Maggie and Paul in that order? Basically, the type of injury Paul sustained to his head is most often seen in a self-inflicted manner. That's why that keeps coming up. But that was the second shot, and rarely in that self-inflicted manner do you have the first shot before the second shot like that. The two don't go together. Okay. I'm thinking, who said that? I'm thinking the defense paid at least $50,000 for witnesses, if not more. Then you have to pay for that info. That's not credible to me. They did pay a lot for their defense witnesses, but that's generally how it works. I mean, you have to bring people in who can look at a situation that they didn't see before. They have to analyze all the experts' work and be able to stand up and testify against it. Good. I think the witness on the stand, the cell phone witness, should have pointed out that the defense's witnesses didn't make reports either. I think that would be funny if he had said something like that. Have you looked at the GoFundMe today, Christy? I saw it was like $1,500. $1,500 for the Hassan family.
Expert on dropping phones here. Woman with medium skin tone raising one hand, face rolling on the floor laughing.
La 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 la. That is awesome. I think a few of us probably have more experience than that particular expert in what phones do. But I mean, honestly, raise your hand if you did this at any time in this trial after you've heard some of the testimony about the light on your iPhone coming on or coming off when you pick it up. How many of you, be honest here, how many of you tried it? I did. I tried it. I picked it up. I started doing the exact same thing. So raise your hands. Let's. If you're guilty, just own it. Just know you're. Yep, Patricia's like me. I did. It was me. I did as well. Yes. So we all tried this, and basically that's what they did. And then they certified him as an expert. Now we could go one step further. If more than just picking up the phone to see if it turned on. How many of you since this last testimony have thrown your phone to see if it turned on? All of us need new phones now. We're all experts. I didn't. I knew it did. P Frog got to turn the feature on. Dum dum. Yep. We're all certified. Congratulations. Go ahead and put that on your resume. That during this trial you became an expert in, what was he, like a cellular phone analysis or something. I think that's what I think you can all put that on your resume. The mother put a thank you on the GoFundMe page. Weather Watch. I did want to bring that up. Just 1 second. Thank you for reminding me on that. Let's see here. Let me, if I can find my app. Here we go. Okay, it looks like we're up to $1,510 on the GoFundMe for the Hassan family, and the mom put an update on there. Let me just read that update to you. It says, let's see, where's the update? It's down here. Okay. It says, hello, everyone. This is Ashley, Amelia's mama. I just wanted to take a moment and say how much you had me crying today. Not tears of sadness, but rather joy and relief. We had planned on keeping this our own business and doing whatever possible to earn as much money as we could on our own, because that's just the way both of us were raised. After Jason completed a delivery through DoorDash, through his second job, to an angel of a man, that's Weatherwatch she's talking about, an angel of a man we had never met before, we were encouraged to make a GoFundMe page by a customer that cared enough to ask questions. I will forever be grateful for that. I can't describe how thankful we are for all of you. Truly, we are so used to being on the other end of the giving, and it isn't something either of us feel comfortable with. I can guarantee you we will never forget this, though, and when we can, we'll be even more driven to help spread the love when we're able. Thank you again for the love and support. It means everything to us. God bless, Ashley. Just a wonderful update. Thank you all, everyone who donated to help this little family out with their daughter who had that emergency surgery, dental work. Thanks for that reminder, Weatherwatch. Let's see. I won't throw my phone because I'm afraid it will break, and then no RA, says Cass. Yeah, if it's your only device to watch me on, please don't throw your phone. There's an app that gives you points on how much airtime your phone gets when you throw it. This app is brought to you by the cell phone sellers, all those stands at the mall that try to get you to upgrade and buy a new phone. I think they created that app. There is actually an app, Jim Bob, as well, and I realize the one you're talking about is real, but there's also an app that will tell you the actual measurements that your phone is receiving as input, whether it's X, Y, Z axes or accelerometer. So I used it when I was on an airplane. When the plane took off, and I could see how many G's we were pulling as the plane lifted off the runway, and vice versa, as the negative G's as you take dips and hit pockets of dead air and everything floats around the cabin. It was a lot of fun to do that. Can I pin the link again? I can, right there. Weatherwatch has got it right here. Let me pin this up. Yes, if you didn't get a chance to donate to that family, I know. I'm not crying. You're crying. The family's amazing. I tried to just talk through it and pretend I wasn't tearing up a little bit, but it does. It touches your heart. You guys are incredible. If you didn't get a chance to donate to the Hassan family for their medical issue and hear that story, please, there's the links on the top of chat. We pinned it up there. It would be awesome if you could get to it today if you're able. Obviously, if you're not able, just sharing it with a friend or telling them about it would be wonderful. Just spread the word. Does phone fly further in airplane mode? You would think it stands to reasonly that it should. But I'm going to go ahead and nominate you as the person who has to test this out. So put it in airplane mode and give it a good chuck. Maybe Frisbee style airplane mode is probably the best combination. I became an engineer cell phone specialist today. I threw my phone on the couch to see if it would light up. I used to have an app that turned your phone into a digital scale. I can tell you it was not accurate, hypothetically. I put my phone in airplane mode and threw it upwards. Worst transformer ever. Oh yeah, I'm here. We may proceed. All right, let's see where we are in the courtroom. Still not there quite yet. It's just a phone's throw. DMV, this might be the comment of the day. New saying, it's just a phone's throw from here. I was just headed down there about as far as you can throw your phone. Does a phone fart? Did RA say? Did a phone fart? I probably misspoke just a little bit. Let's see. Somebody was in chat talking about.
Bring the jury.
Whoa! Someone was in chat talking about mashed potatoes, which I had for lunch. I'm not gonna point any fingers, but someone has been eating my spicy maple bourbon pickles, and they left the jar with just the spicy maple bourbon pickle juice in it. And so I went to the fridge to get my jar out with a big smile on my face, which quickly turned to a frown. So I did not get the SMB fix during lunch. And so it said we had...
All rise. Court is now in session.
That's not it either. That's not it either. Yeah, it sounds so good. I just have to watch the video. Just had the SMB pickles. Yum. Jennifer Clark, glad you like them. Just a phone's throwaway as the phone flies. Chirp, beep, chirp. Do they ever let the defense call rebuttal witnesses? Ivan, they have. As a matter of fact, this particular judge says the case that was cited in the request for him to have their rebuttal witnesses was his case. It was his courtroom. What would constitute a scenario where that would happen? It's going to have to be something that brought up something so completely different and far from the arguments that have been presented that the state or the defense would have a right to counter that. Right now, the only thing that's being brought up is the opposite of whatever the defense has said. So because it's just the opposite of what the defense experts have said, they're saying, nothing's needed. It's just the opposite opinion, the other side of the same coin. If it was a new coin altogether, I think it would be brought up. Walmart is stocked with spicy maple bourbon pickles. That's awesome. Let's see. Maybe Alex stole the pickles. It could have been him. Could have been Alex. Let's see. NR. Did that one work? I think you have to just do NR. You can't do NRR. It should be turned on.
I'm not a cat.
The cat's working. Who was the last rebuttal witness? Do we know yet? It's one or possibly two witnesses.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Check this out. If you have two NR comments too close together, it says so many comments, so little relevance. Isn't that just great? I came up with that one when I made it. And this one I need to fix for cat. Remind me to fix the one for cat. I need a creative response when people try to do cat too many times. What compelled recovery addict to try to first try spicy maple bourbon pickles? Ivan, this is a great question. Call it fate, call it divine intervention. I don't know. I do like pickles. I've always liked pickles, and it's one of those items that you forget to buy at the store a lot of times. You make your shopping list, and pickles just you forget to buy them. It's just you expect them to be in the fridge, when you need them, and so they had been left off the shopping list again because they're not just a common buy pickles type thing. And so I went to the store with the purpose of buying pickles, and I was just amazed by the sheer selection, the quantity, the varieties that I was presented with, as I was just perusing, saying, wow, I've really always just grabbed the dill pickles, the hamburger dill chips type thing is my go-to, and I was just seeing what the full range was that was available, and so I went all the way down to like the habaneros, pickled habaneros, and all the way up to the onions and weird stuff and everything between. And at the top shelf, here were these.
Rise and come to order.
That's the real one.
All rise. Court is now in session.
Perfect timing. I found the spicy maple bourbon pickles, and I'm like, if that isn't a name that's awesome, that deserves a try.
Bring the jury.
A test just on their own. And so I tried them, and I was amazed. I'm like, why have I wasted my time with dills? I like dill. I still eat dill pickles, but really, habanero is no good. Here we go. We want to hear this part.
Exhibit 521 is a worksheet showing steps and steps were taken, along with some calculations about how many steps per minute. It's come to my attention that there's a math error contained in the previously submitted exhibit, and I think the error bled over into the defense's exhibit. I think it's 156. And so at this time, with the state's consent, the state would like to just simply substitute a worksheet with the correct math for the previous incorrect worksheet.
And defense would also ask you to give consent.
Okay.
Judge is like, if you agree, I'm fine with it. He's only here to decide stuff that they don't agree on. The jury pool is full this time. I'll work on that.
Yes, sir.
Turned off the audio for a minute. Let's see what they're talking about. Oh man, it's a huddle of lawyers. There's 4 of them sharing one space. This is good.
I threw my phone to test it and it landed on the super chat button. Oops.
Throw it again, Diver Dan. See how many times it lands on the button. No, just kidding. Thank you very much, Diver Dan. Appreciate your generous super chat. I love the humor as well. You guys are amazing. The jury pool is now polluted. I tried the phone throw thing. Did anyone break their phone? Honestly, I'm hoping you didn't. But did anyone break their phone from throwing it? That would not be good. There are currently no more cats for adoption. Try again in this many seconds. I need all these sent to my burner phone because I love these ideas, but I can't get them from chat where they are right now to the program I need, which is actually underneath chat. I know it's on the same computer. I should be able to copy and paste, but it's hard work. Are Nosy Rosies entitled to know about the email? Ritz, I'm waiting for some more information to come out about that. I have not seen anything. But that being said, I didn't look really closely. I was just focused on eating during lunch. Let's see. Okay, what makes Murdaugh trial? Looking for the latest on Twitter. Just see if there's anything. I'm not seeing anything on the email. I want more details. I want more information.
You'll bring the jury.
Okay. I don't know what it is. Looks like La 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 Lay just gifted a membership. Thank you very much, La 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 Lay. And it went to Jennifer Clark. Congratulations and thank you, La 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 Lay. Please take your seat, Jennifer, up there with the rest of your friends on the front row. We need buttons to represent us as we are sitting in the gallery. Are you talking like a merch idea, Michelle? Or like a button you push to do something? I heard Newman is retiring after this case. Anyone else hear that? Seven, I had not heard that. That would be news to me. I would retire after this trial, says Bone Digger. I got my daughter to do it instead. Yeah, talk someone else into throwing their phone. You wouldn't want to risk your device.
All right, thank you. Your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Dr. Kenny Kinsey.
Kenny Kinsey.
Do you swear the testimony that you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? So help you God. Thank you.
It's interesting what people respond with. I mean, he responded with the "So help me God." Some people say "I do." Some people say "Yes."
Kenneth Lee Kinsey, Kinsey.
Welcome back, Dr. Kinsey. Feels like a year since you were here. You were qualified.
Seems like he was here for a year.
As an expert, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
What I would like for you to do right now is just to remind the jury, give them a little bit of background on your education, your work history, your credentials that made you qualified to be an expert witness.
Yes, sir. I've got a degree from Clemson University, a master's degree, that's undergraduate, a master's degree from Troy University, a PhD from Walden University. I have formerly been certified by the International Association for Identification 2 different times for crime scene investigation and reconstruction. I've worked approximately 800 death scenes in my career, and I've handled and processed countless evidence in crime scene and the crime scene related disciplines. I have completed and passed proficiency in those disciplines as recommended by the International Association for Identification, which includes oral exams, research, technical work, and also I worked under a qualified examiner for a determined amount of time. And I've been a police officer for approximately 30 years in various capacities.
I think
And
this
just
is
to remind the
the
jury,
state
you
attorney
were
general.
qualified as a forensic
Doing the
or crime
questioning.
scene forensics expert in this particular case.
Yes, sir, I was.
And real quick, what other types of qualifications as an expert do you possess?
I'm also a firearms instructor for handguns, shotguns. They call them patrol rifles, but that includes subguns, fully automatic and semi-automatic platforms. I have endorsements through the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy. I'm also a SLED concealed weapons permit instructor, and I'm formerly a law enforcement firearms instructor through the NRA.
Now, you've had an opportunity to review the case file for this particular case, correct?
Yes, I have.
And you have actually been out to the crime scene, correct?
I have.
Beg the court's indulgence.
All right. It's going to get exciting here in just a bit. I'm trying to sync up the audio so I can get you some other videos here.
Marked
Just
as
1 minute.
States Exhibit 526. Do you recognize this map?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what is it?
That's a satellite map from the Moselle property.
I would like to offer this into evidence. I assume no objection.
Submit it.
Dr. Kinsey, we're going to keep our testimony today narrowly focused and tailored to a few witnesses that the defense put up this past week. Did you have the opportunity to observe one witness named Michael Sutton, who was a forensic mechanical engineer for the defense?
I did.
Now, do you recall any of his conclusions or what his main conclusion was regarding the size of the shooter?
I do.
What was that conclusion?
5'2" to 5'4".
Eyes of blue.
I would like now, Doug, if you would, I would like for you to publish or cut on Defense Exhibit 140. Go to page 49. Okay, now what I want to do is we're going to get into this in just a moment, but they published this into evidence last week. And do you recognize these green lines coming out?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, and what do those green lines represent?
Those green lines represent a predicted static angle or I don't know what you would call it, trajectory for possible shooters.
And Doug, if you would go to page 74 of this presentation, please. Do you recognize this photo on page 74 of the defense exhibit?
I do.
And what is it?
It is Mr. Sutton pointing a pump-action shotgun into the feed room at Moselle.
Okay, and did Mr. Sutton develop his conclusions as to the height of the shooter based on math that he did in this particular case?
He said it was trigonometry, but yes, sir, he did.
Based on your many years of law enforcement experience, education, and training, what is your overall opinion on his conclusions?
I think his intentions are well, but I think his methods were flawed.
So what I want to do is I want to go back, and there were 3 previous angles that we just looked at in the previous slide, correct?
That is correct.
And then he also determined an angle here in this photo, correct?
That is correct.
And those are the angles that he used to determine the height of the shooter, correct?
That is correct. And Mr. Wilson, I don't know the totality of what he considered, but that was one of the elements, one of the criteria he used.
Okay, just to refresh the jury's recollection, Doug, if you go to page 4, it should be State 62. It's a picture. What is that a picture of?
That is a picture of what's been described as a quail pen.
Go to page 5, please. And what is that a picture of?
That is a close-up of that quail pen, and it has weathered cardboard on one end.
Okay, and that, for the record, is Exhibit 63 that is a picture of. And go to page 6, which should be State 64. And what is that a picture of?
That is a close-up of what appears to be a bullet defect or bullet damage in that cardboard.
Okay.
We're not
now,
seeing these pictures, unfortunately.
They base their
has these.
angles, of at least 2 angles. Well, let's back up. There were 2 angles taken from this particular one bullet hole. Why is that?
There were. I believe the original crime scene agent gave a possibility of 2 angles, of the angle of impact in the cardboard.
Okay, and what are some things that someone can determine from examining a bullet hole in this cardboard?
Well, the first thing is direction. It lets you know that you had one or at least one projectile fired from that direction. It's a pretty good indicator for direction.
Okay, what's another thing that you can determine?
Sometimes you can determine the angle of impact and whether that bullet was affected before it struck that object. And what I mean is, was it deflected by flesh, or did it hit its target, or is there an internal problem with the weapon that would cause that bullet to be off-center?
Are you comfortable with the direction that was determined by Special Agent Worley in this particular photo?
I'm very confident of that direction.
Okay. The defense determined that there were two potential angles. How confident are you that the methodology used to determine those angles are accurate?
I have zero confidence from this piece of evidence as far as establishing angles.
So that's interesting. You feel good about the direction of the bullet going into the quail cage, but you have a concern about the angle, correct?
That is correct.
Do you have a concern about the angle?
The angle of impact, yes, sir, that is correct.
What are two things that could affect the angle of impact on a surface like this cardboard?
As I mentioned before, you could have, that bullet could have hit an object, which we don't know, or it could be an internal problem with the firearm that causes it. When you think about, if I could explain,
yes.
When you think about a quarterback throwing a football, they spin that football and it makes it stable in flight. Well, a projectile coming out of the muzzle of a firearm, a single projectile firearm, works the same way. You've got little lands and grooves in that barrel. And as that propellant pushes that projectile down the barrel, it twists. Now, there's different twists depending on the firearm, but that twist, called rifling most commonly, that's what my grandfather called it, but it makes that bullet stable in flight. Anything that can throw that projectile off of battery, whether it be striking something or a firearm problem, maybe fouling too much lead in the barrel, those kind of things will make that bullet off-center. Now, it still may go the general direction, but the rotation of that projectile could be off just a little bit when it strikes a target.
So a good analogy would be a lineman getting his hand on a football and making it go wobbly, but it keeps going, correct?
That would work, yes, sir.
I'll leave the witness.
Doug, could you zoom in on this hole real quick?
Jimbo, I can't comment on this because it's just going to be a few years before I'm right in their same spot.
Dr. Kinsey, I'd like to ask you to step down here, and for demonstrative purposes, I'd like you to demonstrate how an angle of impact can be affected in cardboard with a dowel.
Yes, sir.
Ooh, it's craft time.
Describe to the jury what you've done with this box.
I've placed 4 strategic holes in this box representing a bullet defect in cardboard.
I want you guys to see
As you
this.
probably saw in the photographs, as a crime scene investigator, we use dowel rods to help determine direction and angle of impact. Now, they can be as simple as a wooden dowel rod like you get at your hardware store, or they make some real complicated ones made out of fiberglass. If you can afford it, you know, most agencies and most crime scene teams will use a fiberglass rod, but the wooden rods, as long as they're pretty straight and true, they work just the same. So if this represents a projectile defect in cardboard, and may I say weathered cardboard, because this has been out there at least a year and a half since this incident took place, you place that dowel rod in that defect, and then you can get an approximate angle or angle of impact on it, but you can definitely get a more confident direction. If your shooter's over here and he's shooting this direction, or over here, or up or down. But it's not the end-all, be-all.
Apparently, box forts are not secure. You can get shot right through them.
So how could you demonstrate how, well, back up a second, and step away so the jurors can see this photo, if you would. You saw the, I might need you up here.
He's going to poke someone's eye out with that dowel rod.
You saw the defense expert's testimony Mr. Sutton, I believe, last week, describing this hole. Can you explain to them how he determined the angle of impact based on what he was observing in this bullet entry?
I can, Mr. Wilson.
Please do so for the jury.
What Mr. Sutton did with geometry and trigonometry and a whole lot of tools, but basically a protractor, as we used when I testified previously.
Protractor.
If you had a confident bullet defect, you can run a string and then put a level or it's a type of protractor, it's a bullet angle finder on top of that rod, and you can get a general angle of impact in a fixed object. However, this isn't a fixed object.
He referred to that little mark around 3 o'clock. What did he call that?
I think he called it a bullet wash.
Could it be a bullet wipe?
Bullet wipe, yeah, something like. It's not a term I use.
Okay.
I'm familiar with it.
And what was he assuming that bullet wipe was caused by, based on the testimony you heard?
From the angle. He's assuming
the angle of what?
The angle of impact.
Okay. What else could cause that?
As we mentioned, striking the surface beforehand, fouling in the barrel, something internal. It just throws the bullet off course a little bit. It's not spinning the way it normally spins. So when it strikes, it doesn't strike. It doesn't enter the way it normally would. It wallers a little bit, like that football we talked about.
That cameraman's view was not very good for quite a while there.
Well, the purpose of inserting the dowel rod is to try to get the best angle or the best direction you can. And in a perfect world, the angle would be fairly confident, like another bullet defect we're going to talk about. Remember, this is weathered cardboard. So once that examiner, and these rods are not caliber specific either, because a crime scene investigator or an examiner can't look at a bullet hole and guess what caliber it is. That's nonsense. So you try to pick the one that fits the hole the best. And with some of the fancy kits, you get a little shim kit with some little rubber grommets that you can place in there, make it fit a little bit better. But more typically, you just pick the dowel rod that's closest to the hole.
Could a dowel rod affect the angle of impact?
Upon me inserting this dowel rod, I can do damage to that bullet defect. But more importantly, when I remove it, I could do damage. And it's very deceptive damage. It's not intentional, but it can damage the angle of impact, especially in a soft, unreliable object like cardboard.
You can return to the stand. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I like the pace of this questioning.
Please, go ahead.
What I'm saying, once a crime scene investigator gets what they need, they get their photographs, their measurements, their direction. So now this dowel rod's here. And none of us know this unless you've got a video of the examiner taking that dowel rod out. So we don't know what direction he or she might have pulled that dowel rod out because she's got her measurement. She or he is not considering someone coming behind them and measuring again for something in a piece of cardboard. And we're not talking about in wood or sheetrock, we're talking about cardboard. If you pull it to the right, you cause that same bullet wipe that we got in the photograph. Likewise, if I pull it to the left, now it looks like that projectile has entered from a left to right direction. And then you can go on and...
It's going to stab the clerk with that dowel rod.
Up or down. That'll influence the appearance of that bullet defect because you've got an object like cardboard, something that there's no confidence in.
Thank you.
They're sticking sticks through old Amazon boxes, knocking the microphones around. This is great stuff.
So do you recall what the defense expert testified to the direction and angle of that particular angle of impact?
I do.
And what was it?
I think 1 and 3 degrees.
But do you remember, like, was it left to right, right to left?
Going up.
And from what way to what way? What direction to what direction?
Left to right, or right to left.
Right.
Yes, sir, right to left. I have to think about the quail pen in my head.
You guys
are you confident that the direction was correct in this?
Yes, sir. I have no reason not to believe the direction. I mean, that would have to be a huge defect hole for it to throw the direction off.
How confident are you in the angle of this?
I have zero confidence in that angle of the bullet entry.
Doug, if you could go to page 21, which I believe is State's exhibit, a picture of State's Exhibit 38. Can you describe for the jury what that is right there?
Like the first defect, this is also a defect in a wooden, it's been described as a doghouse.
Now, you can also determine the angle of impact and the direction here, correct?
I can.
What degree of certainty do you have that they were right in the angle of impact and the direction in the doghouse?
I place a lot more confidence in this angle because that wood is fixed. It'll show a much truer projection of the angle of impact.
Can you, hold on one second. How is this particular, I think you just described it, but real quick, how is the doghouse different from the quail cage in determining the angle of impact?
Well, the doghouse, if you look at it, is at least a ½ inch to 3/4 thick. So, like I said, you've got a stable, dependable bullet defect. The cardboard is 2 pieces of brown paper with corrugated paper in between to cause, for strength purposes. But as I mentioned, not only is the cardboard, in my opinion, not a good substance to shoot into, it's also weathered, so that makes it even weaker.
Doug, can you go to page 42 on this exhibit? All right, can you, it doesn't have an exhibit number at the top, but this is page 42 on Defense Exhibit 40. Can you describe what this photo is?
Yes, sir. That is a computer animated drawing of some potential trajectories into that quail pen.
And the 2 gray boys here, what are they?
They are they're 2 figures that were placed in that CAD presentation to represent shooters.
Go to 46
5'2" shooters
of the same exhibit.
He's moving fast, but I'm
describe
glad
what
he
this
is.
This is one animated suspect, I guess, or shooter placed in a similar CAD drawing, photograph, animation.
Okay, now go to page 49.
Computerized CAD drawing, photograph, animation. Is that what he said it was?
And what is, sorry, go back, that's the picture I wanted. So there's 3 angles represented in this picture, correct?
There are 3 angles.
2 of them are from the same hole, correct?
Yes, sir.
One of them is from the doghouse, correct?
That is correct.
You are you believe that the doghouse angle is fairly reliable?
I do.
You question the quail house angle, correct?
I place no confidence in that angle from the quail pen.
Explain for the jury, and you observed the defense expert last week talking about this, how did they come to determine, based on these lines and where these gray figures are placed, how did they come to determine their heights were between 5'2" and 5'4"? We'll get to your opinions about that in a moment, but just explain for them how the defense expert got to that decision.
The defense expert said he tried plugging in different heights, and he had to place those animated figures on a plane, that line, that laser line, and he determined that they go back and forth on that plane to achieve the defects that are documented by the original crime scene examiner.
Doug, go to page 51 real quick. Let's see if that's the... So there's some yellow placards here on the ground. You see them?
I do.
And what do those yellow placards represent?
Cartridge cases that were found on the ground. They're markers, so once you find the cartridge cases, you put them there for documentation purposes, photography, and sketching purposes.
And why? Explain to the jury what the defense has determined that their angle is based on those static lines, those green lines, correct?
That is correct. Back and forth on that one static line for one angle and one static line for the other angle.
And they've placed them right there at that particular location. Why?
I think the defense expert was taking into consideration the location of the cartridge cases, and he was showing how it would fit those 5'2" animated figures that he placed in that presentation.
Is it your understanding, and I'll demonstrate, the gray figures are holding the firearm, and those gray lines represent like a string. They would run up and down, correct?
Yes, sir. That was the testimony. You go back and forth on this green line.
Okay. And that they would be right here because this is where the shell casings are. The shell casings are ejecting, correct?
That is how I understood his.
What?
Restate the question.
I'll restate the question. Why would they be placed right there in that particular location along that static green line?
Because they were in proximity to some of the shell casings.
Okay. Can you explain for this jury why their assumptions on the math they did are incorrect in determining that the shooter had to be between 5'2" and 5'4"?
Well, there's a bunch of variables. Variables do matter. There are a bunch that you would have to consider.
Subtle jab. Variables
First, you'd have to consider this to be a static crime scene. Very little movement, and when it is movement, it's controlled movement. Second, you would have to place some confidence in that angle of impact on that cardboard. Third, as I testified in my previous testimony, we're not able to test fire or with confidence what we know to be the weapon used in this situation with the same ammo. And they don't throw the ammo the same place every time. It may be in the general vicinity, but as I said, I believe in my previous testimony, if you knew exactly where it was going to throw that cartridge case, you could carry a bucket with you and sit that bucket and all your cartridge cases would go in the bucket. But like we see in the sketch and in the animated drawing, those cartridge cases are throughout. They're in a pretty large little area. And what I also saw that I noticed from this CAD drawing is there's cartridge cases to the left of these animated shooters, which means that sometime at least two of these shots were fired with the shooter far to the left and not on this static green line.
Could you come down here real quick and point out what you're talking about as it relates to the location of the shell casing?
Yes, sir.
Witness is getting his steps in. Let's see what we have here. Mr. Murdaugh has a headache, I think.
I'm not sure if this is a shell casing here, Mr. Wilson, but right here, that is a shell casing, and it would not eject this direction in any situation depicted here in the presentation. It's not a left-handed, nobody's ever testified it was a left-handed AR-15, and like I said, they're kind of uncommon, and if it is, and that's a left-handed, then we couldn't explain the majority of them being to the right. So that's what makes this static line flawed.
Thank you.
And in another photograph, you can actually see a larger area of cartridge cases back here.
Thank you.
The court just isn't providing the views that we
minute
want for this.
That the angles are correct.
Not enough cameras, not enough
And
space.
they very well could be, correct?
They could be.
Why is the defense's theory as to the height of the shooter represented in this picture still wrong? What else could affect it?
Distance and height.
Would you like to take a moment to demonstrate for the jury what you're talking about?
Weapon position. Yes, sir. Will you tell me which angle you'd like me to demonstrate first?
Well, let me ask you this question before you step down. Can a person be on their knee and get the same angle and be standing and get the same angle?
Yes, sir.
Can a 6'4" person and a 5'4" person still shoot the same angle, just at different distances?
Absolutely.
Can you demonstrate for the jury why that is one way that this could have changed their math?
I can.
Please.
Are they going to break out the actual items? The bang sticks?
I measured this step on the witness box during a break. It's 8 inches. I used to be 5'11", but as I get older, I'm about 5'10". But if I'm here, or I could be 5'8", or 5'2", or 5'4", Here I'm 5'10". Here I'm 6'6". And here I'm even over 7 foot, and I've still got the same angle. I have just added a little bit of distance to it. And as far as the quail pin angle, I'm 21 inches from the floor to my knee. I measured it. I believe it was testified that the defendant is 25 inches between the floor and his knee. So there's 4.5 to 5 inches difference in our heights. Here, I'm probably at 4'10" if I'm shouldering this weapon. And I don't know the mechanics or how it got this way. I'm just saying it's possible. Here, I'm at 39, 38 and some change. Or I can even take it lower or higher. And please don't ask me to demonstrate that twice, because I don't think my knees can do it again.
I think I heard him crack.
Yeah, but that takes me to 36 inches, 37 inches. With the defendant, it would be about 39. So it's definitely possible. Even from a shoulder weapon, it's possible.
They're not going to
And we do not know how
together.
the weapon was being held.
From what you've observed in this crime scene, was Maggie moving at the time she was shot?
This was a very dynamic crime scene. I believe everything was moving. The victims and the suspect were moving.
And how do you know that?
Well, suspect would be the different firearms evidence, the cartridge cases. Like I said, there's no absolute. They're not going to throw them the exact same spot, but they will throw them in a similar direction. We've got cartridge cases in a pretty nice sized perimeter. We've got them at different locations from where Miss Maggie Murdaugh's body, the final resting place, and different angles and different positions in different directions. So that tells you it's very fluid and it's very dynamic.
So if I'm holding a gun and I'm moving and shooting, what is happening with those shell cases as I move?
They are moving as they're ejected.
Where was Maggie's head pointing when she hit the ground?
Miss Maggie Murdaugh's head was pointed in the direction of Paul Murdaugh, where his body rested, back toward the feed room.
What is your opinion of the defense's expert that says the shooter could not have been 6 feet 4 inches tall like the defendant, Alec Murdaugh?
I think that's a flawed opinion.
Could it have been a 6'4" person?
It could have been a 5'4", 6'4", or in my opinion, a 7'4", as I just demonstrated.
Doug, let's go to page 59 in the Defense Exhibit 140. That should reflect State's Exhibit 57. Dr. Kinsey, can you describe that picture for the jury?
Yes, sir, I can. That is a shot from inside the feed room, that back window pane where the buckshot exited Paul's left arm and then continued and exited the feed room.
Please go to page 67. Should be State's 45, I believe.
Lindsay, every gun throws the casings differently.
And what is that right there?
That's a pink string from the window to a pine tree.
A pink string.
And then go to page 69. And what is that a picture of?
I don't know if it's the same pink string, but it's also a pink string coming out of a window.
Okay. And go to page 74. And that is labeled Exhibit 54. And what is that a picture of?
That's a picture of Mr. Sutton with what looks like a pump-action shotgun pointed down into the feed room.
And what do you notice about the angle that he's holding the shotgun and the angle of the string?
They're not
well, the string is parallel.
Let me correct you. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. What is the defense's theory right here, represented in this picture?
I've heard so many theories, but I really believe Mr. Sutton was trying to show that the angle wouldn't match if it was a taller shooter shooting into the feed room.
Okay. Doug, I'm not quite sure what page it is, but I think it's 2 back. Go back one more. There you go. That's it's labeled Exhibit 53, and what is that a picture of?
That's a picture of Mr. Sutton holding, I believe, the same shotgun, more parallel to the floor.
And what is he trying to demonstrate in this photo?
I believe he's trying to follow that pink string to that pine tree, or whatever got him to that pine tree.
Do you recall from his testimony how he got that angle?
I do, sir. I do. Mr. Sutton testified that he got to where he believes Paul was standing, and he got down and he peeped through the hole in the window, the one that he thought would match that corresponding defect in that pine tree, and he ran a string to that defect in that pine tree.
Are they trying to determine the angle of the shot is exactly the way the shotgun's being pointed?
Well, I believe they were trying to determine trajectory path of that projectile.
What is flawed about this?
Guys, with a rifle, you're talking about a single projectile, and most people understand the distinction. If you can find where it was fired and you can get a perfect impact, sometimes that'll give you an idea of the path of that projectile. With a shot shell, you're talking about 9, 12, or 16, in this case 9 buckshot pellets. They're packed in a shot shell with filler, it's like a styrofoam material. They're packed in a shot shell. When that cartridge, the primer of that cartridge is ignited and those pellets exit the muzzle of that firearm, they start to spread. We've heard a lot of testimony about that. They start to spread, and they spread in a cone. Okay, you got some at the top, some bottom, some left, and some right. And the more the distance becomes, the greater they spread. They're not like a mother duck with the ducklings right behind it and all the buckshot are in line. So you can't get a true trajectory on this shotgun. You can't even measure a true pattern, not even close to a pattern, with one pellet. So it's my opinion that that pellet that definitely impacted that pine tree, that's the top of the cone. So you've still got a bottom and you've got two sides of that cone, and unfortunately none of those pellets were located.
So, in your professional opinion, can you exclude a 6'4" defendant like Alec Murdaugh, or anyone for that matter at that height, from shooting that shotgun at that angle?
Absolutely not.
When the defense expert says that the shooter has to be between 5'2" and 5'4", do you disagree with that?
I do disagree with that, wholeheartedly.
With what degree of certainty do you think they're wrong in their conclusions?
I just think it's an unknown. I mean, there's many more variables you have to know. How the shooter was holding the gun. You know, how his proportion to legs matches up with body. I mean, that's something that we're all a little bit different. And unless you've got a video of that or someone tells you how they held a weapon, I think the notion that being able to look at this evidence and determine that is unscientific.
You said something a minute ago. You said there's so much we can't know. Could the shooter have been running laterally?
Certainly he could have.
Could the shooter have been running toward Maggie?
Certainly.
Maggie was certainly moving, correct?
In my opinion, she was.
Could the shooter have been on their knees?
Could have been.
But there's no way to know for sure, correct?
That's an unknown, yes, sir.
And because there's so many unknowns, there is no way the defense expert can definitively exclude a 6'4" person from shooting the rifle and the shotgun, correct?
The defense?
Can it be the witness?
In your opinion, can the defense, based on what you just testified to, exclude a 6'4" person from being the shooter, and with either weapon?
In my opinion, no. The defense witness is relying on math and absolute, and in crime scene investigation, sometimes there are no absolutes.
Dr. Kinsey, have you ever observed a contact wound to the head by a shotgun?
Yes, sir, I have.
How many times have you observed a contact wound to the head by a shotgun?
After the fact, I've seen several dozen, maybe 3 dozen. but I also had a gentleman that committed suicide in front of me, probably from me to you.
Oh, man.
How many times have you actually seen either photos of a contact wound to the back of the head with a shotgun in your professional career?
Probably a dozen. Out of that 3 dozen, probably 24 of them were suicides or someone taking their own life, probably a dozen execution killings.
Can you describe for the jury what kind of trauma a face, and I know they've heard from a pathologist, but in your experience as an expert in crime scene forensics, can you describe the kind of trauma you have observed in your career with contact wounds to the back of the head or any part of the head?
Yes, sir, I have.
And specifically to the face?
Generally speaking, whether it be a shotgun or a large caliber handgun, the result is similar. You feel as though the forehead and the facial features have went away, and that's a kind way to put it. They're actually there, but they've been shredded, and the pathologist can actually put those features back in place, or the majority of it. But looking at it, it looks like from the teeth up, the person went away. It's just a mess.
Dr. Kinsey, I would like to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 486. Can you look at that and say if you've seen that picture before?
Yes, sir, I have.
And what is the picture of?
It's a picture of Paul Murdaugh at autopsy.
And what part of Paul Murdaugh is it a picture of?
His face and his forehead.
Does his face look like it suffered the kind of trauma you have observed in the past from a contact gunshot wound to the back of the head or any part of the head?
No, sir, other than some red features from, falling on the cement after the fatal shot and some blotching to his skin, his face looks fairly normal to have gone through what he suffered.
And I'm not going to publish the photo again because I think people are tired of seeing it, but I do need for you to describe what kind of things you've observed with the eyes and the bones with people that you've seen that have been struck or shot in the back of the head at point blank range.
Yes, sir. Well, it's not always the back. Now, I've seen some from the side also.
But
yes, sir. Generally, like I said, it looks like the facial features have gone away, or they've at least changed drastically. A lot of times you will get large blood pockets or contusions under the eyes if the eyes don't pop out. A lot of times the eyes will pop out and they'll be on what's left of the cheeks. The facial bones, you can grab them with a gloved hand and you can move them around. And you will actually have pellet exits in the skin flap. If you pull the skin up, you can see where the pellets, whether they be buckshot or close distance birdshot, you can see the actual defects from those pellets.
Based on your training and your many years of law enforcement experience, are the wounds suffered to Paul at the back of the head consistent with a contact shot to the back?
Absolutely not, in my opinion.
Okay, Dr. Kinsey, we'll move on from that for just a second. You were here yesterday, correct?
I was.
Did you have the opportunity to observe, I want to say his name correctly, I believe it was Tim Pombach?
I did. He
was a crime scene investigator who was qualified as an expert for the defense. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I would, he came up with 2 significant conclusions, you could say 3, about how Paul was shot at the feed room. Do you remember what those were for this jury?
The big one that I recall is that Paul was shot in the back of the head with a contact wound. And the other one,
I can explain,
the strikes in my mind,
break.
I don't know.
Remind me.
The shooter passed him and shot him from inside the feed room. Those are the 2 big ones that I recall.
There was another one regarding the number of people there. Was there?
The thing about 2 shooters, yes, sir.
Okay. We'll get to that in a minute. I would like to... Doug, can you get the Elmo up? been marked as Defense Exhibit 182. What's that a picture of?
That's a picture of that expert with his hands cupped opposite the hinges on the door frame.
Okay. I want to leave this picture up for a moment because what is the direction that the picture was taken from?
From inside the feed room.
Facing what direction?
Outside the feed room.
Okay. Now, you had an opportunity to hear the defense's theory on how Paul was shot, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
I would like to demonstrate that with you right now.
Yes, sir.
Can you walk us through the defense's theory as you understood it to be?
Yes, sir, I can.
Your Honor, for purposes of this demonstration, I don't know if the court would allow it, but it'd be nice if we could open this door. I want to make sure that there's security here, but if we could have that door open just for a minute or two.
Judge should say no.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So now the exhibit has left the courtroom. This will be interesting. So now we need defense attorneys over here that can see.
I'm grabbing what Smart States Exhibit 4, which is a camo, Benelli, Super Black Eagle 3 shotgun, 12 gauge.
Oh, we're going to use a real gun.
We'll use this for the demonstration. So step down.
Happens to be the gun they think did it. The one that Mr. Murdaugh had with him. He's going to check it. He's like, I don't want you pointing to this.
Now, is this door the same width as the feed room door?
It's a couple inches wider than the feed room door.
And of course, the feed room door doesn't have this, it's inset, correct?
That is correct.
So this is not exactly a replication of what happened at the feed room door, correct?
No, sir, it's not. The door swings the same direction, though.
Now, you have given me permission. I'm very careful about muzzle velocity. Muzzle awareness. But you have given me permission to point this at you, correct?
What about the guy behind it?
You actually asked me to, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right. So go in there and stand a couple of feet back. It doesn't have to be 5 feet. But you have since testified that Paul was 5 feet inside the feed room, correct?
Can we demonstrate the first shot out here?
I am.
I believe they.
All right, stand back a little bit because you got to stumble toward me.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to point like I'm pointing at you.
Yes, sir.
Paul is shot. Where's the shooter approximately outside the door?
The breech face or the ejection port of the shotgun is just past the door frame.
Okay, Paul has just been shot.
Yes, sir.
And then in the defense's theory, you tell me what to do, and you act this out, and I'm going to do what you tell me to do based on the defense's theory of the case.
The defense agreed with the assessment that Paul stood there for a moment, bleeding down his injured left arm, and he slowly walked toward the door.
Okay, and what does the shooter do?
The shooter's coming in the door.
And then what does the shooter do?
He shoots Paul in the back of the head after he passes him.
Okay, and then shoots Paul in the back of the head like this, and where does the blood spatter go?
The blood spatter, the pellet defects, and one that I didn't know about that the expert collected was in the door frame at the top of the door.
Now I understand this is a little different than the feed room door. That's the best we can do. So what did you find odd about the theory, first of all?
I think the theory is preposterous, in my opinion.
Can you walk me through why you think it's preposterous?
Absolutely. Number one, that dry lock number 2 shot shell fires a projectile at 1,450 feet per second once it leaves the muzzle of that weapon. As was mentioned, that's a millisecond. That's fast. To think that the pressure from flesh and bone will cause that pellet, those steel pellets now, we're not talking about lead. Lead's a little bit more giving. Lead is malleable. It will crush or flatten. We're talking about steel, BB pellets. They will turn around because of the pressure, go back the opposite direction, 180-degree direction at enough velocity to dent a steel exterior door and embed in the door frame. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen, in my opinion.
don't know if you mentioned this earlier, but can you talk about, make sure I get it right.
And can I add?
Please do.
Also, there's no defects to the OSB or the T111 siding in the bottom of the room.
All right, wait a second. You said a lot right there.
Yes, sir.
TS what?
TS111. It's like a exterior paneling that people put on their buildings. That's what's on the building.
For all us city boys, we appreciate you describing that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. It's a whole weather paneling. There's no defects at the bottom, and if that theory is correct, if this is an entrance and this is an exit, the shot still had to go somewhere. There's no defects down there on anything. The door frame, as I mentioned in my previous testimony, the door frame has a clean void. That would be perfectly in line with those shot from that shot shell. There's no cracks, chips, pellet holes in the cement. There's nothing in the OSB. That's cheap plywood. That's man-made plywood. There's no defects in the plywood. There's no high-velocity blood spatter on the floor. What was pointed out to you is medium velocity, and that's from coming out of the wound and gravity bringing it down to the floor. You would see a pattern on the floor just like what you can see in the photographs at the top of that door. None of that's there. So I have to look at the science, and I have to look at inertia, and I have to look at that shot shell and how fast that shell is propelled out of that barrel, and I know that it can't turn around 180 degrees and go back the other direction. It's not like blood and tissue. We're talking about steel pellets.
Dr. Kinsey, are there studies on percentages of blowback when you're shooting into someone?
There are.
And based on your expert opinion, what percentage of blowback would come back at a shooter if they were able to shoot at that angle?
Well, I don't think there's any definite, but what I read is 8 to 10%, except in, like I said, it's not an absolute every time, but 8 to 10%. Remember, the most of your force is going out the front of the barrel.
And a moment ago, you were just talking about the defects and all of the trauma that would have happened to the paneling and the floor. Can you point on this photo with the dowel stick behind you for the jury? I just want them to see in this photo.
Here comes the dowel stick again. This witness has, by my calculations, now walked about 3.7 miles back and forth between the witness chair.
Right here. The void, as I documented in my original testimony, the void was from here down, other than one stray satellite drop of blood. That was fairly clean. From here to at least right here. But there's no defects here. There's no defects in that cement outside. There's no defects in the inside cement, and none in this OSB right here. And that was still there when I did the tour. They ripped out all the shelving and some of the insulation, but this was still there.
Dr. Kinsey, you may have covered this a little bit, but explain for the jury, if someone is shooting down, as we just demonstrated a moment ago here in the doorway, you're leaning out, the shooter is shooting down. How do pellets get embedded into the door frame up here? How is that possible?
I think it's impossible myself. Physics don't work that way unless you're shooting into a trampoline or a huge piece of steel, and then you may have a pellet deflected back on you. It happens many times, especially when we're shooting steel targets, but not at that velocity. It will not sink into the door frame, and it definitely will not dent that door with what I documented, in my opinion.
What is the restate for this jury what the defense's theory based on that blowback that would have exploded into the shooter's face here behind Paul? Explain for this jury what the defense's theory is about how that shooter would have been injured.
The defense expert testified that that shooter would be most probably incapacitated from blood, bone, and body fluid, and there was a high likelihood that he was injured by those pellets.
Dr. Kinsey, in your expert opinion, is there anything awkward about a shooter standing outside going into an enclosed area to turn around to shoot someone from enclosed? Is there something weird about that to you?
I can't figure out the methodology of a shooter. I've never done any crime like that. Mr. Wilson, but I don't see, if we talk about common sense and everybody's mentioned the totality when they don't have an answer for something, it's always, I looked at the totality, but I don't see any reason for someone to squeeze up past one victim in this doorway to go inside to shoot him back out. And if he did, if that scenario did happen, that doesn't explain all the pellets that are in the floor of the feed room that we've heard testimony to as to why law enforcement didn't clean those pellets up. If it happened the way the defense expert says those pellets would be out here in the yard, they would not be inside that feed room.
Dr. Kinsey, you ever had a chance to review the case file on this particular case and observe the defense testimony from last week?
It's two separate things. Yes, sir. I have reviewed our case file. All crime scene or what I felt was crime scene related evidence. I didn't look into the videos and a lot of that other stuff. And I have witnessed the testimony of the defense experts.
Are you familiar with what the investigation has determined about the tool marks found on the 300 blackout shells found around Maggie's body and the tool marks found on the weathered 300 blackout shells found way up by the house in the flower bed? Are you familiar with that?
I am familiar.
And what do you know about that?
The examination.
Of our case, it's going into completely new information.
It's beyond the scope of our case.
Their ballistic experts already testified. We didn't present a ballistic expert, and now they're parading him as a ballistics expert.
Response.
Your Honor, their expert said yesterday, about an hour and 9 minutes into their testimony, that it would be impractical for one shooter to bring in two long guns. It has always been the state's theory that the shooter owned both guns and had them on him. So we're rebutting what the defense expert said.
The objection overruled.
Please answer the question.
Can you ask me again, Mr. Wilson, please?
Are you familiar with what the investigation has determined about the 300 blackout shells found around Maggie's body and the 300 blackout shells found up by the flower bed that appeared to be several months old and weathered? What relationship do the shells have to each other?
According to the firearms examination, those cartridge casings were loaded and ejected from the same weapon.
So a family-owned weapon is what was used to kill Maggie.
Objection leading.
What do you infer from that information?
I would infer that this is a family-owned firearm.
There was some testimony yesterday, Dr. Kinsey, about, well, it was from the defendant's brother, Mr. John Marvin Murdaugh. And it related to the following day he came upon the crime scene. It had been cleared, and he saw how the crime scene was left. Can you explain? You've been in law enforcement for how many years?
30 years. Well, over 30, but 30 years getting paid.
And you're the chief deputy at a sheriff's department?
Yes, sir. Orangeburg County Sheriff's Office.
Just to clarify some things, can you explain normally or traditionally how crime scenes are cleaned up for this jury? Is it the responsibility of law enforcement, in other words?
No, sir. There are private companies that are contracted through SOVA. Well, it used to be SOVA. The name's changed now, and I'm sorry.
What does SOVA stand for?
It's Victims...
State?
It's the State Office of Victims Assistance, but it's now changed. I can't tell you what the new acronym is, but it works through our victims advocates, law enforcement victims advocates. Almost every department has them, and there's funding provided from taxpayer funds to work through your victims advocates, and you go out and you clean these crime scenes for the families so they don't bear the burden of cleaning those crime scenes. Law enforcement in particular cannot collect and dispose of and transport sounds terrible, body parts or body fluids. That's something the coroner has to do because it's actually by permit through DHEC. But to make it easy on the family, these companies can collect those items and then they will turn them over with a chain of custody, or they will properly dispose of those items.
Dr. Kinsey, is it your expert opinion that a 6'4" shooter cannot be excluded from the murder of Maggie and Paul?
I see nothing that could exclude a 6'4" shooter.
In your expert opinion, can you tell this jury, is it right for the defense to say that there had to be 2 shooters based on the testimony you heard yesterday?
Objection. Is it right for the defense
in your
to say?
expert opinion, can you exclude 2 shooters?
I cannot include or exclude 2 shooters.
Can the defense include, to the exclusion of all other possibilities, 2 shooters?
Absolutely not.
Beg your court's indulgence. Please answer any questions the defense has for you.
Mr. Griffin.
Can I get a break? Nope. It goes straight to Jim. Let's see how this goes.
Good afternoon, Dr. Kinsey.
Hey, Mr. Griffin.
And anyone who has a doctorate degree, I want to call doctor. It's all right if I call you doctor?
I'll answer anything you call me, Mr. Griffin.
I understand.
I appreciate that.
But now, your degree, though, is in criminal justice. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
You're not a doctor of pathology?
Absolutely not.
And you have no medical training?
I have training in pathology of gunshot wounds, yes, sir. I've attended several courses, classes, and seminars. It was also included in the criteria for the certifications I mentioned for the International Association for Identification. I've also conducted extensive research on police officer use of force cases and the injuries that result from therein.
Your doctorate is in criminal justice, and I believe your dissertation research is in use of force and perceptions of public attitude held by police trainers?
That is correct.
What was that?
Well, with the current atmosphere or what's been going on the last 5 or 6 years in our country, I was just trying to help. I wanted to figure out something that would assist with, because we've seen some law enforcement officers do some terrible things on video. We've also, we've got a segment of our society, the minority segment of our population. A lot of those citizens are in fear of law enforcement, and I wanted to study if the media perception as held by the 3 types of law enforcement trainers, if the media perception and the way they portray law enforcement, if that affected the way we train our officers, if we're too hypervigilant, or if we tell them, look, there's death waiting for you around every corner. Is that going to make law enforcement more prone to use force or use less force, or those kind of criteria? And that's what I was interested in. I was laying the groundwork with a scientific quantitative study to allow someone to come behind me and do some further research just to expand that topic.
Right. But you've said you also have done some gunshot wound training as part of some certification?
Yes, sir. The IAI, as I mentioned, I was formally certified 2 different times. I think it's a 5-year certification. And I did let it lapse in 2015 because that's when I started my PhD and I couldn't study for both. But that is an extensive process where you do research and you have to do a written test, and then with my proficiencies throughout SLED, and then I still do some with our sheriff's office now where you have to pass proficiency, and that is practical examinations, testing, and that kind of thing.
Okay. Now, in this case, that the state did have a pathologist, Dr. Reamer, correct?
Yes, sir, they did.
And you reviewed her autopsy report as part of your work, correct?
Not so much as reviewed her report, but I went and spoke with her in Charleston at her office.
Well, did you review her report?
I have access to her report, Mr. Griffin. I can't tell you I looked through the whole report.
And you understood that her opinion was it was a shoulder shot through the neck and then up out of the top of the head. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I believe we agreed on that. Yes, sir.
And your reconstruction opinion is that's the exact same angle that Paul was shot by the shooter. Shoulder, neck, out the top of the head.
Yes, sir, but I didn't just rely on her information. I also looked at the crime scene photographs, and I went to the scene myself.
I understand.
Yes, sir.
But, and then did you hear Dr. Eisenstadt, his testimony?
I did.
Now, you worked with SLED, did you not?
I did, yes, sir.
Dr. Eisenstadt worked for GBI, correct?
Yes, sir.
SLED does not have its own in-house division of medical examiners, do they?
No, sir. There are several fine medical examiners throughout the state. I've done autopsies in a lot of the bigger cities in South Carolina.
Dr. Eisenstadt worked, and he was the chief medical examiner toward the end at GBI, correct?
That's what he testified to. Okay. I don't know that doctor.
You didn't know of him before this case?
I did not, no,
okay.
sir.
Now, he says, his opinion is, it was a gunshot wound, contact to the back of the head. Is that correct?
That is what he testified to, yes, sir.
And if he is correct, then your opinion is incorrect. Is that right?
I don't share the same opinion as that doctor. But yes, if he would be correct, that would make me incorrect.
Okay. Now, in your training, are you familiar with Mr. DeMayo's book on gunshot wounds?
I have read DeMayo. I've heard it described as the Bible. I don't consider, no do my cohorts consider that as the gunshot Bible. There's 4 or 5 different versions out. There's one called Terminal Ballistics by Dobb, and there's also one, Gunshot Wounds by Doherty, and those are the ones that I'm more familiar with. But I'm not saying it's a bad textbook, and I'm not saying that the information in it's not correct.
Okay. Now, and we'll get to more of that in a moment. What I'd like to do is first address Mr. Sutton's work that you had criticisms of.
Well, I didn't have criticisms. We just have different opinions. He's an engineer, and I'm a crime scene investigator, okay. Mr. Griffin.
Well, I just, seems like you said that the angles of the to the quill pen were unreliable.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I have several more criteria that I didn't mention earlier, but I mean, if you want me to go into those, I will.
Well, I want to ask you first, what's your understanding as to how those measurements were taken? Who took those measurements in the quill pen?
The original angles were the original SLED crime scene agent that responded to the scene,
right,
and took those angles.
And you understand that Mr. Sutton relied upon Agent Worley's measurements?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Now you were putting a dowel, shoving it in a box and taking it out of the box as if Mr. Sutton went back and tried to remeasure it.
No, sir, that's not what I was insinuating. I said when the original agent removed her dowel, it wasn't nefarious, but depending on how she removed that dowel, she could have altered that impact.
Well, let's take a look at that, Doug. And this is Defendant's Exhibit 140. And can you pull that up? The one you were showing with the state. Excuse me. Just go to the second slide to start with. There you go. So you understood from this exhibit that Mr. Sutton relied solely on the shot trajectories measured by Agent Worley.
As I said, it wasn't his intentions, Mr. Griffin. It was his results that I disagree with. It's not absolute. And he gave, in my opinion, an absolute opinion to this.
Well, why would Special Agent Worley take measurements if someone should not rely upon them?
I can't answer that. You'd have to ask Special Agent Worley. But in my opinion, the direction, even though she can't obtain a perfect angle of impact, or even if that weathered cardboard was damaged, it's not a good substance to depend on because it's just not hardy enough. And she was showing direction. I'm not saying the direction's wrong. I'm just saying I wouldn't put confidence reviewing this case or work in this case. I would not put confidence in anything that angle of impact tells me because it's cardboard.
All right, so if you can go to slide number 7, I believe I've numbered them correctly. And do you recognize that as being one of her measurements?
I do, yes, sir.
And do you think she took the dowel out and then put it back in to put this measuring device?
No, Mr. Griffin, I didn't say the angle. I said the angle of impact when he was talking about the bullet wipe and that part. That's what I was referring to, and that's what I'm saying. That hole can be altered when you remove those dowel rods. That shows direction, but that direction, I don't place a lot of confidence in it because we have more cartridge casings and we have injuries on Miss Maggie Murdaugh. We don't know if this bullet struck Miss Maggie Murdaugh. If it struck anyone else, we don't know that the defect in that doghouse struck Miss Maggie Murdaugh. Those are unknowns that we don't know. So all this proves to me is that the shooter was moving and more than likely Miss Maggie Murdaugh was moving.
All right, hang on. So Doug, if you'll back up one to number 6. So are you suggesting that this photograph, number 6, taken by SLED, Agent Worley, that was taken after the dowel was removed or before a dowel was put in there?
Mr. Griffin, I don't know. That's what I'm telling you. I don't know how it was altered when she removed the dowel. I wouldn't place confidence in this before inserting the dowel because it's paper. It's not something hardy.
Well, would your opinions be different if you knew she took the picture first before inserting the dowel?
It would still be irrelevant except for direction because we know we had a moving shooter, we know we had a moving victim, and we can't prove one way or the other whether the projectile that caused this defect struck Miss Maggie Murdaugh.
All right, so if you'll go to slide 8. Again, this is Agent Worley's measurements of a dowel in the hole. Is that correct?
Same picture, yes, sir.
Well, let's go to number 9. It's a little closer. And is this measuring up and down or left and right? Horizontal or vertical?
That is up and down.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to mention this, but the actual protractor or level finder is backwards. It would be a much more confident angle if the flat edge was up against the substance, but I wasn't going to bring that out.
But you did.
And SLED did this, not...
SLED did that, yes, sir. But I don't know what her intentions were. Like I said, she could have just been trying to show direction. I don't know that, Mr. Griffin.
Well, this is direction, but it's up and down direction, right?
Yes, sir. It's showing angle of impact also.
Right. And if you had confidence in the angle of impact, you could do, whether you're doing it with a ferro system or just, the old-fashioned way with some sort of colored twine. I mean, it's a legitimate way to determine shot angles.
I don't know what it would prove, and I've run it through my head a million times. I don't know what more it would prove other than you've got a moving victim, you've got a moving shooter, and that at some point in time, Miss Maggie Murdaugh was over there in the vicinity of that quail pen, and we know that because we identified that tire tread impression on her leg as being from that Polaris or another tire just like it.
Okay.
So I know that already.
So if you go to slide 12, please, which is Exhibit 70. So you know that this shot angle through the quail pen also went through the feed room. Through the shed, through that wooden wall. That wooden wall there, correct?
I don't think I observed a photograph of the inside of the shed. I may have, but I don't believe I ever observed that.
Well, do you see number 12 going all the way through? This is the dowel that goes from the outside, the inside, and then on through the back side of the quail pen.
I see it being held up by the cardboard and the rabbit wire, but I don't know what's behind that cardboard.
You're unaware that it actually went through the wood there. You didn't know that?
I do not know, and like I said, I don't see what it would prove. I don't see any more that it would prove than you've got a moving suspect and a moving victim.
Well, if the measurement included going through fixed wood siding, that would give you more confidence that the angle is accurate, would it not?
Yes, sir, but the angle itself will prove no more for me than direction, because what this proves to me is at some point in time, Miss Maggie Murdaugh was close to this quail pen. If this shot is related, and I have no reason to believe it's not, and my shooter was moving, my victim was moving, I don't know forensically what else that can prove.
Well, you can certainly measure the angle of the bullet entrance to the quail pen and calculate backwards to see where that shot was fired from.
You could, yes, sir.
And that's what Mr. Sutton did he not?
He did, and I never disagreed with his direction. I'm disagreeing with his final analysis or his final result that you can judge how tall a shooter is without knowing a whole lot of other variables.
Well, you understood that Mr. Sutton said that the gun, the barrel, was somewhere on that line at to make the shot angle.
Moving back and forth on that line, yes, sir. Yeah. I heard his testimony.
And that he picked a spot and said if you put the gun at a hip level to get on that line, he used a 5'2" person as an example. That's
exclusively, yes, sir. I do.
But he did not say the person had to be 5'2", did he? I mean, we all know it could be dynamic. A 5'8", 6 foot person can get low.
What I gathered from his testimony is it was his opinion that only a person in that height range could have fired that weapon. That was my opinion.
Well, his opinion was that it would be a shooter at 6'4", it would be an unnatural position for them to fire at that low of a level.
And that's the part I disagree with. I don't know how Mr. Sutton could publish an opinion about what's natural or unnatural.
Well, if it's someone's 6'4" and the muzzle of the gun is being fired at 28 inches off the ground, I mean, the 6'4" person either's got to get down on the ground or hold it down below their knees. Isn't that correct?
I have demonstrated several different ways, depending on distance and height, that a shooter can shoot. We don't know. We don't have a video of it, Mr. Griffin.
Right. But Mr. Sutton's methodology, I think what I'm hearing you now is you don't have a real dispute to his methodology.
He's an engineer. Yes, sir.
Okay. What you dispute is the accuracy of the angle coming out of the quail pen because of the construction being cardboard. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I said that if I was investigating that and even reviewing that case as a consult, I put little or no confidence in that angle of the impact of that cardboard. Now, I put much greater confidence in the one for the dog kennel.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can. You mentioned you had a fair amount of confidence in at least one of the angles coming out of the quail pen, right? Left or right?
The direction, yes, sir.
The direction. Mm-hmm. And so let's take a look at that right quick. And Doug, if you'll go to
time. Please go to the jury room. Please do not discuss the case.
Jury gets a quick break. We get a quick break. We have not had yoga yet in the courtroom. Not sure if the judge is going to ask everyone to stand and start the music, but that would be nice. Let's see. It's not right. It's not the right command to trigger instructions for turning on allowing gift memberships. If not, can you respawn it? I will fix that if it's not right. I apologize for that. we'll get that fixed.
Court reporter needs a break. We'll take 15 minutes.
Court reporter needs a break. She's been talking long enough. I think they're going to rotate out too. We'll probably get they swap out usually about this time of day. So yeah, somebody was asked a question, and I said I would explain it later. I would explain why. I think it was, let's see, Raz. I'm trying to remember who it was. I'm finding the question. I said I'd answer it, and I don't remember what the question was. Basically, I thought it had something to do with why they're trying so hard to argue, how the shooting happened. And thank you. I do see the gifts coming in. I'm trying to highlight them as they do. Samantha just gifted a membership as well. Wendy, you received that. Congratulations, and thank you, Samantha. Sharon McDonald, I see he said you now have Aqua Courthouse by your name. Looks great. Dallas Born Boston Bred gifted a membership as well. That one went to Seagulls. Congratulations, Seagulls, and thank you, Dallas. Appreciate that. I think the question had to do with whether why it was so important for the state to argue about how the shooting happened, and why they're arguing about the direction of the second shot was fired. The state is trying to prove that Alex did it. And the defense, they're not trying to prove that someone else did it or that Alex didn't do it. They're just trying to throw doubt up there. They just want the jury to be confused about the situation and say, it could have been all sorts of things. It could have been this way. It could have been that way. And so they presented this, he was shot in the back of the head thing, which it's sort of difficult to imagine once you know the feed room door size and the size of the feed room and things like that, how he could be shot from the front and then do the little hokey pokey dance or wiggle around each other through the doorway and then get shot from the back of the head. And then obviously the blood splatter and the damage from the pellets and things all happened above him and nothing was down below him and things like that. Defense is trying to introduce as much doubt as they can. The state's just saying that's bunk. Jury, you don't need to think about that. That's not possible. They want to make this as straightforward as they can, but they can't. At the same time, they can't say exactly how this did happen. All they can say is, we believe Alex did it, and we believe it could have happened like this. I'm not sure if that answers the question. Definitely doubt, says Kenny Official. Definitely some doubt there. How do you receive the gifts? KPOTTR, Copter, K-Potter. How about that? K-Potter. You go to, at the top of the screen, if you look at the top of chat, there's a little button that has a green gift mark there, or you go down to the bottom where the $sign is. You can click on that and, it went away. If you click the join button, depending on what device you're on, click the join button, and then when it opens up the window, the options to join, instead of joining at the top right hand corner of the screen, there's like 3 dots you can click. You can select a setting there to change and say accept gifts on this channel, and then it'll allow you to be selected. I thought this gift link worked in the past. It would take you straight to that page. If it's not working, I can get it updated. Defense is making the state witness admit his science is questionable as the other guys. Not all defense needs to refute. You can use witness to prove the opinions don't matter. Let's see. Didn't Alex say he heard someone pull up but not gunshots? I think he said he thought that they were there, but he didn't. An additional question, he didn't say he heard a car pull up or anything. There was some testimony before about a cat. It wasn't a human, a wild cat or something. What if it was 2 people, says Squid Daddy? What if it was 2 little people and one of them was on the shoulder of the other little person? Squid Daddy, I think this is something we need to investigate. We need to definitely look into this and see if that's how it could have happened. Why wasn't Cousin Eddie called? I believe Cousin Eddie had a solid alibi. That's what I've heard, and I don't know what the alibi was. Susan Blankenship, woohoo! Like to see that courthouse in a new color for you. Looks great, Susan. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Bit at the PC. Much happened in the last 20 minutes or so. It's been a lot of back and forth on little details on this one, as the defense is trying to poke holes. See what I did there? Poke holes in the theory that this expert witness has presented about the holes. Specifically, they're using this cardboard box and they're sticking there's a hole through it, and they're saying if I pull this dowel out at an angle, like if I pull it straight out, like perpendicular. Where's my camera? Let's go this way, right? If I have a cardboard box like this and I poke a hole through the box, okay, straight through and straight out, that hole's going to be pretty round. But if I were to poke the hole in and then pull the stick at an angle and then pull it out, it's going to smooth out a round portion of that hole. And he says that might have been what the witness is saying was a bullet wipe, showing that the angle the bullet came in. But really, it could have been caused by somebody just grabbing the dowel when they're done measuring and yanking it out of the cardboard wall. So it's a lot of technical discussion about something that, may or may not matter. The state's not saying, we're not saying that it, what didn't happen. All we're saying is this was one of the rounds that was fired. It could have been one of the rounds that went through Maggie or something else, or could have struck anything or anyone. We just
don't consent to that name.
Yeah, we don't consent to that name. They're just saying that's probably a deflected bullet. Witness seems very confident in his answers. Yes.
Is it time to fill pickle fund jar?
Ann, you just did. Ann, thank you very much. I will have to head out to the store and get some new spicy maple bourbon pickles because I am out, and they are fantastic. Those that are new here, I'm a huge, huge fan of spicy maple bourbon pickles. We have a pickle as well, a yodeling pickle. I got mine a day after Emily D. Baker got hers on her channel, but we had pickles before anyone sent her a pickle. So I like to think that we were the original pickles. Let's see. Did you hear the juror was, whoa, that a juror was escorted out? Grumpy Cat? I did not hear this. What's the details here? I want more information on that because that should have been presented here. I think Cousin Eddie is chaotic witness. Chaotic witness. Neither side would want to actually question him, especially defense, because that involves Alex Murdaugh admitting to drug running, which is automatic 25 years. I don't think he's coming in. There's no way he's going to be a rebuttal witness. Rebuttal witnesses they use those to clarify something, to make it very apparent what the facts are. And Cousin Eddie would just be a circus sideshow. It would be bizarre. If it's a hung jury, does Alex get a new trial? If so, does all this evidence come in again? Yes and yes, Sharon. Isn't that going to be exciting? Would you be here for round two if we had to? Probably not. Defense made it pretty clear that exact forensics only happens on TV. Can we have spicy maple bourbon pickles? Soundbite, please. I can barely say it, even though it's my favorite pickle. I can barely say it correctly. I'm not sure which soundbite you want. Did the puppy ever get named from last week? We have not, and I apologize. I sort of let that drop. There were some suggestions. I think they're over on the Discord or maybe on Facebook, and that might be one of the better channels to use to name the puppy, just because it requires a lot of tracking of votes and things like that. Angie, you're such a great supporter of the channel. We love you. Ann is amazing. Thank you very much, Ann. And Samantha, great mod as well. All our mods are fantastic here. Ven's here. Ven, you're late. As you can see, you should have been here 2 hours ago, according to the bot tracker. But at least you're here, Ven. Good to have you. Hope you're having a great day. Let's see. Name is Mud. I honestly think a hung jury could help the prosecution. Do you think they'd do better the next time around? That would be interesting. And if they do a round two, if there was a hung jury and they had to do a re-prosecute this, would they reference testimony that was or argument that was presented in this one? So what if the state came on the second one and said, "Here's how we think he did it," and had a completely different theory to what they have now? Would the defense then be able to say, "Why did you change your story?" Or is it just like, pretend this trial didn't happen, we're going to start again for fresh? There's no way this judge is giving this trial. He wants to see this case over now. Ivan, I agree. He sees the finish line. It's getting close. Grumpy Cat, what trial was the juror escorted out? Yes, Kevin, I have the same question. I'd love to know what we're talking about there, if you have any information there. Debbie, not my puppy. It was one of the our extended family members in chat. One of you guys. You need a Bitcoin wallet so we don't have a taxable transaction when I sell a Bitcoin to donate, says Ivan. I have a Bitcoin wallet. I didn't know I was. Let's see how I could get that shared to you, Ivan. Appreciate your donations. I'm sorry about the tax implications for you. Hung jury is unconstitutional. It's double jeopardy. You can't be. Hung jury is a mistrial. I mean, it's The state can choose to do it over again. I think so, since they were rushed by speedy trial. It just seemed rushed on their end and would be able to investigate more the minute details that were missed. This was a rushed trial. It's very speedy as far as murder trials go. Look at like Sarah Boone, for instance, who's been sitting in jail for 3 years. Still hasn't talked to her lawyer, as far as we know. I wasn't meaning just as a rebut witness, but as a witness overall. Remember, when Jim continuously tiptoed to the fact $500,000 of the $790 made from the Ferris case went to Eddie from Alex Murdaugh. Too much uncertainty due to the situation, says Puzzleman. Alpaca Renee says, Recovery Addict, are spicy maple bourbon pickles worth $13 on Amazon? Not available in Southern Arizona. Alpaca, I would say they're not worth $13 if you're not sure you're going to like them. If you've tried them before and you can't find them in your area, I would say I would pay the $13 for them. But if you're not sure you're going to like them, I wouldn't. I would find another way to do this, and maybe we'll just have to call Walmart and make sure that all stores carry spicy maple bourbon pickles for you. Next time the pathologist will x-ray yeah, I'm surprised. She's never going to make that mistake again, I think. She's going to be taking pictures of everything. It will depend on what the breakdown of the hung jury, if they decide to do it again. Yeah, there's a huge expense of this, Ann. It's a massive expense to the state. Think of all the time, the court time, the judge, all the court staff, all the bailiffs, everything that's gone into this. It's actually probably a boon economically to the town because of all the out of town visitors who are, have bought up all the hotel rooms and all the Airbnbs in the area. They're having all sorts of sales tax bonuses from the lunch trucks that are there and everything. So it's probably a net win for the town, but it's a huge expense from the budget. And I mean, tying up court for over a month, it's crazy. If Alec Murdaugh wouldn't have lied about being at the kennels, then he would have probably not even been on trial for this. You might have a point there, because there's not much evidence that pins him there. I don't know. He would probably just be facing the financial stuff right now. Hung jury is a mistrial. If it's a hung jury, it can be retried. Would brains show up on X-ray? Sorry to sound thick. Yes, all matter shows up sort of on X-ray to different degrees. Like bone shows up as thicker and it would be whiter, whereas tissue is going to be a lighter color. The X-rays travel through a little better. Ivan says, I hate sweet flavored condiments and I love the spicy maple bourbon pickles. Ivan, your testimony of their deliciousness carries a great weight with me. I know they're good. Thank you, Cakes Boo. Appreciate you being a great mod here on the channel. Thank you very much. They're saying if a hung jury trial, the state would not go again because of the expense. And they've also got the idea that's hanging out there that he's facing 99 financial charges that have a penalty of life in prison without parole as a maximum penalty. In addition to that, he's got another 7 financial charges with IRS implications that also are serious charges. There's very, very little likelihood that Alex will escape all this and not serve any more time in prison. More likely than not, he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail, whether it's for financial crimes or whether he's convicted for these crimes for murder. Sozy says, I can't wait for Sarah Boone's trial. Any update when that trial will start? It's slated for in April, Sozy, but the problem is they've just hired, or they've received permission to hire a couple of experts to do some analysis on Sarah Boone and her defense that she was a battered wife and how that plays into this whole thing. We don't know how long that expert's going to take to reach his conclusions or finish his investigation. And because the court has authorized up to $10,000 to be spent for that, if they say, hey, he's in the middle of it, there's going to be a continuance and maybe another continuance. So it could be summer before this starts. I'm hoping that it sticks with spring. I'm hoping the witness is able to put together a report pretty quickly, that he has everything he needs, and we can just move on that way, and we can get to that case, because it has been sitting there a long time. And the judge already feels like this. We need to get this moved on. We need to get this in court soon. We realize that she has already waived her right to a speedy trial. She did that way back in like November of the year of the murders. So she's waived that trial. We're not on a timer that way, but still, it's not right to have people just sit in jail waiting. And she's tired, and the judge is tired of getting letters from Sarah Boone. He wants to move forward and just see a resolution on that. So I think he's going to push a little bit as we move on, especially if there are more continuances. I think he's going to push. That's why we saw that he wouldn't let her attorney, Mr. Bankowitz, get released off the trial. He says, no, you need to stay on and do your work, see it through. But there's a good chance it will continue. Like, this is a really big case. You need a lot of time to get evidences together. Never made sense to me that a speedy trial is allowed in cases like this. The speedy trial is a right. It's a constitutional right the defendant has, because it's wrong to keep someone locked up in jail without proving that they're guilty. And so if we feel that somebody deserves to be locked up in jail pending a trial, they can say, okay, you can do that, but I have the right to demand that my trial moves forward. Prove it. If you want to hold me hostage here in the jail, you've got to take me to court and prove that I'm guilty. Otherwise, let me go. Let's see. Who pays the defense attorneys if it's done again? The defendant pays the defense attorneys if it's done again. They're going to get paid for their work here, whether it's a mistrial or not. Alex Murdaugh has taken, I believe, $500,000 out of his 401k to pay them right now, and probably owes more than that. So we'll see. I think he has more in his retirement that may be available. I think Alex and his team forcing speedy trial knew it would play in their favor more, since it wasn't so cut and dry from the start. Well played by the defense. I agree. There was no evidence. The fact that it took so long to arrest him is evidence that the state had very little to go off of. It'll be interesting to watch this same thing, the speedy trial factor play out in the BK case up in Idaho as well, as he has not yet waived his right to a speedy trial. He waived his right to a speedy preliminary hearing, but his actual right to a speedy trial has not been waived. So there still are sort of on a clock there up in Idaho to try to prove that really quickly. So that's going to be interesting. I think they probably have a little more evidence to go on there. Obviously, they have DNA that puts them at the scene, which is a little different than finding your DNA at your own home. This was a crime scene that he didn't really belong at. So that BK one's going to be interesting. Let's see. I think we're coming back to court right now. We are. Judge is back. Sorry if I didn't get to all the questions. I can stay afterwards and we'll try to answer what I can.
Bring the jury.
You guys are playing the sounds.
You bring the jury.
He says it different every single time. We were just on a break. Yep, that was a short little break for the court recorder. Needed the break. Speedy trial can be a double-edged sword. Defense has less time for discovery and to prepare. It's why some defendants waive that right.
All rise. Court is now in session.
You guys are playing sound effects. I see what you're doing there, DMB. We do have those sound effects, and they are from this trial, so it's sort of funny. We'll keep those as we watch other trials, but it will still be Judge Newman saying, bring the jury. So it won't cause quite the same confusion in future trials. The tongue was cramping up for the court reporter. Yes, I think... I'm not sure if we can switch. Let's see if... I can't see who it is. But I'll check this out. You can see the defense table. Alex has stockpiled water like it's going out of style. Buster's back there in the background. Looks like a lot of gaps. Look at the courtroom. The whole back of the courtroom is vacant.
Bring the jury.
I'm going to turn the sounds down now because the jury's coming in. I'm surprised that there's so few people there in court. Maybe everyone is rushing out to Moselle to stake out a spot along the route.
Yes, sir.
All the laughers got kicked out.
Dr. Kinsey, I'm still talking about the quail pen. You remember how tall off the ground that defect is?
I do not remember, Mr. Griffin.
If I would show you Agent Wardley's report, take a look at it. It's already in evidence somewhere, but if you could just tell the jury, and if that's consistent with your understanding of how high that...
The field trip is right after rebuttal arguments are done. I'm not sure if defense gets any, I forgot the term.
4 foot 2 inches?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And did you inspect, when you were out there, did you inspect the entry in the quail pen or the damage to the shop behind the quail pen at all?
I looked at all of it, but I did not run any angles.
Okay. And did you ever talk to Agent Worley about her measurements?
I did, yes, sir. I did interview Agent Worley about her work on the scene.
When was that?
Back the first or second week of December at the New Sled Laboratory.
Okay.
I can give you an exact date if I look back through my notes.
I don't need that. Okay. But are you being compensated for your time?
I am, yes, sir.
And how much have you been paid thus far, and how much you hope to get paid before it's all said and done?
Well, I'm a Baptist, so if I didn't charge something, my friends and family would talk bad about me. But my retainer is $2,500, and I have a flat $100 an hour rate. And when I added it up, I was up a little over 100 hours. But I ended my retainer myself without anyone asking me to do a little over a week and a half ago. And I'm now working off of a mutual aid agreement that my sheriff's allowing me to do that, Sheriff Leroy Ravenel from Orangeburg. Sure. So I'm not charging anything from a little bit before last week on.
So 100 hours, $100, is that?
That's roughly, I have expended roughly, not all of it was daytime, but if I take off, I have to use personal leave from work to do this work. So roughly 75, 80 hours I have used of time from work.
Okay. So you've made $7,500, $10,000?
Well, I've spent way more than that running up and down the highways, Mr. Griffin. I've probably been to 20 meetings or so, but yes, sir, if you look at it that way.
Okay.
20 meetings, $10,000. Those are expensive meetings.
But I will be going up next week.
Exhibit 140, and if you'll go to slide 31, please.
Thank you, Nicole. I could not remember Sir Rebuttal.
I think it's the right number.
Right now, we don't expect any Sir Rebuttal from the defense.
So this is from Mr. Sutton, and it's got, let's just focus on the angle going in the quail pen. This is not a height issue. This is the angle. Do you have any disagreement with this angle?
I don't. The only problem I have with it, I know there was a side-by-side there, and I don't see the side-by-side depicted on this photograph. So looking at it, I could not tell you how that would play into that angle.
Okay. But, and the quail pen's 4 feet, the defect in the quail pen's 4 feet, 2 inches off the ground, and according to Agent Worley, the shot angle is rising either 1 degree or 1.5 degrees or 3 degrees. Is that consistent?
That's accurate, yes, sir.
Well, let me ask you, do you believe the shot angle is rising? I mean, you may not agree with that exact angle, but do you believe it's rising toward the quail pen?
Well, I believe it could be. Yes, sir, I do.
Do you believe it could be a downward
I do not
trajectory?
believe, looking at it, that it could be downward. No, sir.
So we can eliminate downward.
Well, if you're going by my results, I'm saying that I don't believe it's downward.
Okay. And so if it's going upward, and then you take that line back that we see, this line, at some point in time it's going to go into the ground, will it not?
It should, yes, sir.
And do you know where that terminal point is, roughly?
I have no idea, Mr. Griffin. As I said, I know I've got a moving victim. I know I've got a moving suspect. Okay. I know there's a lot of movement. I don't see where that's worth 25 cents or a quarter, one way or the other. It gives me an idea that this is a fluid and dynamic crime scene.
Well, if you had confidence in the vertical angle, then you would be able to determine the depending on where along the way, you would be able to determine the height of the muzzle of the gun if you had confidence in the angle.
Well, I'd have to know a bunch of unknowns also. How the shooter's holding the gun, how tall the shooter is, the distance, did he move a shell casing, did he not? I mean, I don't know those things, and I'm not going to make them up.
No, I mean, would you have to know all those things to know how high the muzzle is off the ground at any point along that line?
If you give me a fixed point and I knew that I had a strategic fixed position I was shooting, I could run a tape measure and know where they were at.
And it doesn't matter whether it's a 7'4", 6'4", 4'4" person, the muzzle's going to be at a fixed spot, right?
That's the way angles work, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, on this Faro, and Faro is the SLED does Faro work, do they not?
Yes, sir.
And it is the state-of-the-art technology in scanning and getting measurements?
It is the new thing. We use the sketch pad and a pencil, but I do understand the technical part of it.
And would you agree with me that the feed room would be about right in here? Can you see that? You want to come down and point out where the feed room would be on this angle? Excuse me, on this Faro?
Rick Andrew, it's a Walmart item. I'll share it when we've got a little bit of a break in trial.
I believe it's right here.
Right there at the end of the structure?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I guess you don't have the measurements, but do you know roughly how far this line, this angle would be away from the corner of that structure?
I have no idea, Mr. Griffin.
You've not done that math?
No, sir, and I saw no need to if all the shell casings are up here by the shed.
Okay. All right. Now, I want to go back to Paul and his injuries, and the and I guess first I want to talk about your analysis. We've been critical of
drug testing.
Y'all have been critical of
Mr.
Palmbach.
Your analysis. Sorry,
Dr. Eisenstadt, but under your analysis, the shot of the gun was up through the left shoulder, jaw, and out the top of the head. Correct?
Yes, sir. That is my opinion.
And you, I'm going to come up here, and this is the feed room door here. I just want to understand where you have Paul under your analysis. Is Paul on this side?
Which shot, Mr. Griffin?
The last shot.
The fatal shot?
Yes, sir.
Well, as I mentioned in my report, I would assume he's closer to this wall because I've got a void 6 inches below that light switch. If you look at the outside photograph of that building, there's a silver light cover on the wall. And about 6 inches below that, I've got one stray satellite drop of blood, and then it's fairly clean. You've got some outliers, but it's fairly clean going down.
Okay. So you think Paul is closer, and this would be the door and it's swung open, so you think Paul is closer to this side?
Well, I think it would have to be Paul because the angle wouldn't match up if the shooter was here and Paul was over there. It wouldn't match up either way. Whether it was down in the head or up in the head, it still wouldn't match up either way if Paul was against the hinge side of the door.
And Paul was standing roughly how I'm standing?
No, sir. As I demonstrated, well, we tried to demonstrate, me and Mr. Harpootlian were kind of dancing up here, but I believe he come out with his head down. He's drooped on the left side, and he come out on this side with his shoulder just outside the room. Yes, sir. About like that.
Okay. And then the shooter is off to Paul's left?
Yes, sir. From this side. Yes, sir.
And the shooter has a shotgun, right?
Absolutely.
And he is some 2.5 feet away?
Well,
I mean, the barrel is 2.5 feet away?
That's what Dr. Reamer said. Yes, sir.
What do you say?
I don't believe it was that far away. But I'm not, like I said in my earlier testimony, I'm not going to contradict a pathologist. She knows more about the human body than I do.
All right. But you don't mind contradicting Dr. Eisenstadt?
Well, because I've been to the scene and I've reviewed all this evidence. Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, well, that's what we're doing. So if you say, let's take 2.5 feet from the end of the muzzle, is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir, that is.
And then you've got to back the shooter up to hold the gun, and I guess if you got it at 45 degrees, right?
Well, as mentioned a dozen times so far, I don't know how long this shotgun is.
Okay.
Okay, but it would be here. And I don't know where he's standing, most probably behind this wall, because Paul is stumbling toward him. So here.
So the shooter's shooting left-handed, you think?
Well, I don't know if he's left or right-handed, Mr. Griffin.
Okay.
I don't know that part.
Right.
But that angle would match up, despite all the...
That matches up?
Yes, sir, that would match up.
Now tell me, in that angle, and this dials the gun, where's that shot shell going if it ejects?
If I'm pointing into the room, it could go inside the room.
Well, you just raise it up to... I mean, that's under your angle.
But I'm behind the gun. I'm behind the gun, so that's going to push the weapon out a little bit. The ejection port's on the right, so the shell could easily end up in that room.
If Paul's standing there and the end of the muzzle is 2.5 feet away,
yes, sir.
You're saying could eject in the room?
The door is this wide. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
At 45 degrees?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's doable. Yes, sir.
And then under your analysis.
Your analysis?
Your analysis.
Oh, my analysis. Okay.
Your analysis.
Yes, sir.
He went where I went.
We're not there. We're not there. We're still in court. The shot's going up through Paul, chest, jaw, out the top of his head.
Yes, sir.
Number 2 bird shot.
Number 2 steel shot, dry lock, 3-inch. Yes, sir.
And you counted, and I think you said 150, 156. I can't remember.
Well, the literature says 156. I was like 150, but I kept getting tired of counting, and I think I kept messing up. So I'm going to say the literature is probably correct.
Okay. And I think there were some 60 to 70 that were found in his body, at least.
I have no reason to doubt that. No, sir. Okay. I didn't go 1, 2, 3, 4 and count them on the X-ray, but I believe that.
Okay. And Doug, if you'll pull up, please, Defendant's Exhibit 188, which is in evidence. Well, I don't want to do that one. Hang on. Let's do crime scene photos. And
Alex not liking this.
folks, this is going to be a sealed exhibit, so please cover your monitors.
Break out the pizza box from the night before. Cover the monitor for Alec and the court.
This is Defendant's 193 as soon as we're ready. So you tell us, you recognize this photo?
Yes, sir.
And this is the door?
Yes, sir.
And this part of the door is blood spattered?
Yes, sir, it is.
And then there's hair?
There is hair. There's a little bit of bone, and there's some other body tissue.
Okay. And there, you think, where is Paul in relation to the door at this
He
point?
would be right where I showed you, off at 135-ish, give or take a few degrees, closer to this side, so you could make that angle. You can look at the directionality in the blood and tell which direction it's going.
Okay. And coming out of the top of his head would be 75 steel pellets?
Yes, sir. That's no other way for him to get out. Yes, sir.
and you went out there and you found one indentation.
Well, it's an indentation, but that is a little deceptive because you can see the paint damage to the top of the door. One indent is what I found, but I said bullet defects. The S got dropped from that. But if you zoom in on that, you can see where the paint was just disturbed around that indentation. But one proves it didn't go back the other direction, Mr. Griffin. It doesn't take a lot.
So if you'll pull up 188, Bill, defendants in evidence 188, and this is not under seal. 188, please. And zoom in on the indentation.
There's actually several if you, you're cutting in on that one, but.
So you say there are more defects on the door?
Yes, sir.
Did you document any defects that you observed on the door?
I got them in a photograph. I can show you.
Okay.
What other documentation did I need to do it to verify that that's the same door?
No, I'm just talking about other pellet marks on the door.
There are other pellet marks on there, yes, sir. You just cut that one down, but if you move up a little bit, you can see the little indentions right there in the paint.
All right, back it up, Doug.
Right above the hinge, right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay.
There's several of them there.
And then you see this pellet here in the...
I did not see that, but I'm vertically challenged, and I wish I could have looked up and saw that pellet, but I did not see that pellet lodged in that door frame. But I'm glad, Mr. Pombach, however you say his name, I'm glad he found it because that even proves my point a little bit more.
Well, so I'm going to ask you, according to your shot angle, how would a pellet get there?
It's really? The cone. It's a cone, Mr. Griffin. I've already described how a shot pattern works. It's a cone.
So this missed his head, you think?
No, it come out of his head. Okay. And the ones in the floor in the feed room probably also come out of his head. They bounced off that door, the OSB, and in the feed room.
Okay. And so you believe that this pellet that's in the door jamb came through his shoulder, through his neck, out the top of his head, and ended up at that location?
Well, it didn't turn around and come back out the top of his head. Yes, sir, I do believe that.
Well, now, you said there's blowback 8 to 10%. What do you mean? You testified earlier there's blowback about 8.
If someone is behind the stock of a long gun and you shoot someone within distance to have high velocity spatter come back at you, it's going to be 8 to 10% of what's in front of the gun is going to come back at you. And a lot of the literature supports that.
Well, were you, let me show you, and this is under seal. Please cover up, and it's Defendant's Exhibit 192. Under seal, 192. Do you see that?
What?
This photo.
Yes, sir.
Now, this blood spatter down here where you say Paul would be standing, what's your explanation for that?
What do you mean, what's my explanation?
What is it?
That is medium directional blood spatter.
From what injury to Paul?
Probably his brain hitting the sidewalk would be my best guess, but that's not high velocity.
Now, you understand what Mr. Palmbach said was that that's more consistent with Paul being shot from the top of the head, going through his neck, out his shoulder, and producing that stain.
I also understand Mr. Palmbach said there's no damage over here from those shot pellets, and you can't have one without the other. I disagree with that result.
So you believe this is from Paul's brain landing
Either his brain landing on the sidewalk, bouncing off the door, or either his body falling in body fluids outside. That's low velocity, low to medium velocity. That's not high velocity blood spatter. That's stomping in a puddle of blood or something moving in a puddle of blood. That's not the projected blood like you'd have a millimeter or less in high velocity blood spatter. That's large. It does show some directionality. It's coming from the door frame or either right outside the door frame, but it's large. That's way too large to be associated with the exit hole of a gunshot.
So you understand his brain landed feet outside?
I do understand, Mr. Griffin, but I also know his brain made contact with that door and the top of that door frame before it landed. And I know gravity works and brings body fluids back down to earth. Okay. You got one or the other, either that or when he fell in existing blood. That is low velocity. Like I said, that's associated with something in a puddle or something large. That's not associated with a gunshot or high-speed machinery.
Now, would you agree this is a voiding area over here on the door?
I wouldn't agree it's a void area because I don't see the outline of shoes, or I don't see the outline of a implement or the outline of anything else. I would say there's more concentrated blood droplets over here on the side opposite the hinge, but I would not necessarily agree that's a void area. I see downward spatter on the door right here. For it to be a void, that would have to be absent blood.
Well, you see a little bit.
I do, yes, sir.
But you don't see very much blood on the door.
Not compared to the other side. You're correct.
Okay. Now,
but if there's something there, Mr. Griffin, blocking that spot, you're not going to see a little bit. You're going to see none. If you're standing there and I splash you with blood, there's going to be two perfect bloodless footprints there. So that's why I'm not considering this a void.
Unless it goes up and comes down.
Gravity brings it down. That is right. And if your person had time to move or whatever, I guess that could count for it. But
well,
I don't consider.
If it went over the person and came down.
And that would do what?
If body matter went over, brain went over, hit the top of the door, and then bounced out.
This is a state's witness.
Down, that would account for a drop here or there.
State's rebuttal witness.
It could count for a drop here or there, but like I told you, the majority of that force is applied upward.
Right.
Upward.
That's
why you got the hair on the ceiling. That's why you've got the demarcation line on the containers. That body fluid was directed upward with force.
Okay. And the you mentioned there's no footprints here. Was any effort made to illuminate footwear impressions through any protein enhancers?
I didn't see any of that, Mr. Griffin, if they did. I saw no evidence of that when I went back to the scene. Generally, when you use dye stains and that kind of thing, it's just going to be there forever.
Dye stain would have picked up, perhaps, stained footwear impressions you can't see with the naked eye, wouldn't they?
It may have, if someone had stepped in blood and left a footwear impression.
Right. Well, there's a shooter somewhere, inside or outside the door, correct?
Yes, sir, I agree with that.
And there's no effort to determine footwear impressions of the shooter.
Mr. Griffin, obviously, I don't know. I don't know what the process was. I know they examined some partial footwear impressions.
You can take this down, Doug.
But I don't know how far they went beyond that.
Well, they certainly should have gone further than they did. Would you agree with that?
Mr. Griffin, I can only judge what I would do, and sometimes I would, sometimes I wouldn't. If I saw evidence that I had something that I needed some more detail, I would use chemicals, but it just depends on the situation.
Kinsey, I'm going to show you what we marked as Defendant's Exhibit 197 and 196. And I'll ask you first, 197, do you recognize that as essentially a picture outside the feed room door?
Yes, sir, I do.
And Your Honor would move 197 into evidence this time without objection, I believe.
Without objection.
Are you offering both of them?
Yes, sir.
Any objection to either?
No objection, Your
They're
Honor.
both admitted.
All right, 196. Dr. Kinsey, what would you make of those pock marks on the concrete outside the feed room door?
I don't know, Mr. Griffin. I don't know what they are.
Could they be pellet?
I guess they could be.
All right.
They could be from a pressure washer also.
Oh, you have these? Okay, great. So we're seeing for the jury 197, and then can you zoom in there? Can you, Doug, go to 196, please. So those could be from a pressure washer, and those could be from a number 2 birdshot pellets, correct?
Well, I don't know. I have to see the cement everywhere else to see how it's weathered.
Wow.
All right.
That looks interesting. I'd have to see where this is at.
Now,
that would be
few
consistent
questions.
with
You
what I'd
mentioned
expect
that
from birdshot.
that you had seen some 12 execution-style killings with contact wounds to the head.
I said I've worked about 36 total. Probably 12 of them were homicides to the head. The execution thing, I don't know if it's execution or just contact, but I would say it's self-inflicted as opposed to someone else doing it.
Well, so let's get it right.
Debbie, do you have somebody in mind?
36 total. I thought
Probably 36 total, yes, sir. And 2/3 of that was probably self-inflicted, so that would leave 12.
Self-inflicted are usually under the chin and the mouth, on the side.
Well, the one that I witnessed was to the forehead.
To the forehead?
Yes, sir.
Now, of the 36, how many were shotguns?
No, I've worked a lot of self-inflicted gunshot deaths. I was saying shotguns, about
Oh,
3
so
dozen.
36 shotguns.
Yes, sir.
Roughly 12.
And a couple of them were accidents too, but yes, sir.
Okay. And the and how many involved number 2 birdshot?
I don't recall. I had some with birdshot. I don't recall if it was number 2, 4, 8, 9. I don't know.
And how many were to the back of the head?
Probably a dozen were to the head. Contact either the back or the sides, or the one I told you about in the front.
Okay. And any of those, did the brain evacuate from the skull cavity?
I have seen them. I have seen the brains come out. Usually that was from one here. I'm not going to say I haven't seen it. I probably have seen it. But most definitely, like I said earlier when I described it, it looks like it goes away. It's really still there. It's just not something you can quantify. I mean, it's just a mess. That's the only way I can explain it.
In your career, have you ever worked a case where a victim's brain had been evacuated the way Paul's was in this case?
Yes, sir, I have, and tongues also. Tongue and brain, I have seen them. Yes, sir.
And were those self-inflicted?
Both.
Okay.
Yes, sir, both.
And you're talking about shotgun?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
shotguns.
And I think you described those as execution-style killings.
Yes, sir. I would. If you put it on somebody's head from the side or the top, I would. That's how I would describe it.
Well, let me ask you: would you describe Paul's murder here as an execution-style killing?
In the context that someone executed him, yes, sir. But it wasn't in the top of the head.
I understand.
Yes, sir.
And that, and there was no signs of struggle. You agree with that?
I saw none. No, sir.
And would you agree with Mr. Palmbach that it appeared that Paul got caught by surprise?
I've said that from the start. That would account for his arms being down. Okay. Yes, sir.
And
or someone he was real comfortable with.
And even under your analysis, the shooter would have blood blow back blood on them. Is that correct?
I believe they would. Yes, sir.
It's just a matter of the quantity between you and Mr. Palmbach as to how much blood would.
Well, as I mentioned in my report, as you get closer to the muzzle of the gun, I think proportionally it's going to increase. You know, when I said 8 to 10% is what most of the literature says, that's behind the stock. But as you get proportionately closer to the muzzle end of the gun, that's going to increase because you're down at the business end where those pellets are coming out doing damage.
And in this case, you're talking about brain matter?
Yes, sir.
Blood?
Bone? Yes, sir.
And getting hit from some skull fragments?
Yes, sir. That's possible.
Under your scenario as well?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And lastly, how many murders have you worked where one person brings a high-powered assault weapon that has a magazine capacity of 20 or more rounds and a shotgun with maximum capacity maybe 3 shells?
Well, I have worked multiple murders where the available weapons there were used and several calibers were used, but I can't tell you from memory the other ones.
Logically, it would make sense that if you're going to go kill 2 people and you have a high-powered weapon with a high-capacity magazine, that was all you need to do the job, right?
Well, if the weapon's available, Mr. Griffin, if it's there and it's available and maybe it wasn't something that I put a lot of thought in, I'm probably going to use whatever's available.
Well, here we know there were 2 weapons available. There was a 12-gauge shotgun and a AR-15 style 300 blackout.
Yes, sir.
And both were used?
Yes, sir.
And there was sufficient capacity in the 300 blackout to kill both Maggie and Paul, correct?
Well, in a perfect scenario, a shotgun is what I would want at night with moving targets. But in a perfect scenario, a young man doesn't take a double-aught buckshot to the middle of the chest and walk away from it. So I don't know. I don't think like that. I don't know. But in the dark, I'd rather have a shotgun than that rifle.
See if he has any more questions here for Dr. Kinsey. Dr. Kinsey sort of held his own under questioning, hasn't really buckled much. Let's see if we have a couple more questions from Jim.
One more line of questioning. You demonstrated Mr. Palmbach's shot from the top of the head with Attorney General Wilson a moment ago?
Yes, sir.
Now, that was Mr. Palmbach never put anybody inside the door the way y'all demonstrated in his testimony, did he?
That is the way I understood it. Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, he said that. Well, can you come up here, Mr.
I mean, with the void, you're talking about the void. He said there's a void here, and this is where I believe the shooter would be, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. So if you'll come up here, Mr. Arbutland, and let me find the dowel.
Let me bend down. Don't let him bend down like that.
No, I don't.
Come on, you want to point it
No, I don't. So
he says use the shotgun.
So if you're coming out of the threat, so you're going to get down.
Down?
Yeah, get down. Almost to the ground.
Bend over like this?
Further. All the way. Yeah, you probably need to get down further, but you probably can't do that. But the shot to the head as it's coming out, right? Or boom.
He'd have to be twisted this way for it to work out with the arm if that was the
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But that's fine. That's fine. But Mr. Palmbach never said that they passed in the doorway, did he?
He might not have said those words, but that was my inference, that there's a void there. And when he's in the picture holding his hands here,
Right.
I took that to be Paul's head. So that's...
All right. Well, okay. Did you not understand when he was in the picture there he was demonstrating what your angle had to be to make it work.
Well, I wasn't in the door with my angle.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's all we have.
Thank you.
All right.
Briefly, Your Honor.
Yeah, there's no field trip today. That's going to be tomorrow.
All right.
It's taking too long today.
Dr. Kinsey, you've had an opportunity to speak with with Dr. Reimer, the pathologist that actually examined Maggie and Paul, correct?
Yes, sir, I have.
And you had an opportunity to observe and listen to the testimony of Dr. I think it's Eisenstadt, who was the pathologist that did not examine Maggie and Paul, correct?
Yes, sir, I have.
You've also had an opportunity to go to the crime scene and observe the feed room, observe the areas where both Maggie and Paul were murdered, correct?
That is correct.
You've had an opportunity to observe all the brain matter and tissue and the defects in the doors and the wood and everything and get a complete context for what happened that night, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Is Dr. Reimer or Dr. Eisenstadt's conclusions about the trauma to the bodies, which one of them is more consistent with what happened at the crime scene as you observed with your expert background?
Well, I'll start by saying I don't know either one of them from a can of paint. This was my first time ever meeting Dr. Reimer, but my opinions are consistent with hers. I vary a little bit on the distance, but like I said, I'm not going to argue with a pathologist. I'm not that kind of doctor.
Real quick, you differ with her a little bit on the distance of what?
Of the fatal shot to Paul's shoulder, I believe it was a little bit closer, and I can't account for that lack of stippling. But other than that, her opinions and my opinions are fairly consistent.
But that would not change, that difference of opinion would not change your conclusions either way?
No, sir, they would not.
For the sake of this redirect, let's assume for a moment that the angle of impact and the direction that the defense posed were accurate. Are there other variables that the defense expert didn't account for that could change the height of the shooter?
Prosecution goes first in closing.
Well, as I demonstrated,
They also go
positioning,
last.
distance, height, the way you're holding the weapon that could place those cartridge cases there, it's nothing uniform about it. As I said, it's static and dynamic.
So the shooter is running around and the victim is moving, correct?
Yes, sir.
It's chaotic.
Yes, sir.
It's crazy.
Yes, sir. I would imagine it was.
This guy's moving all over the place.
There's no way to know, unless you were there, how the gun was being shouldered, where it was being held, the angle. There's no way to know that.
I have no way of knowing that.
You were asked about how much you were being paid to be here today. Do you recall what the hourly rates of the defense experts were when they testified?
I do.
Can you go ahead and tell me
Three
what those
times
were?
what he's getting.
Some was $350 an hour, some was $650 an hour, and I think one was $5,500 a day, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh. Jim, pictures you just put into evidence? Oh. I got them right here. I just found them. Thank you. Okay, I'm showing you what's marked as State's Exhibit 197. Do you know when that picture was taken?
I have no idea.
Okay, sir. I'm showing you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 196. Do you know when that picture was taken?
I have no idea. No, sir.
Is there anything about the defects of that photo that stand out to you other than just concrete defects?
They're not very uniform, but no, sir. Other than that,
Does that photo tell you anything?
it tells me nothing. No, sir.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Quite well.
Anything further?
Thank you.
Thank you. You may step down. Any further witnesses by the state?
Your Honor, in the rebuttal case, the state rests.
And we're done.
Gentlemen, the state has rested.
Let's see if the the defense is going to go for their rebuttal.
I'm going to have you go to the jury room for a break. Please do not discuss the case.
I can't see him going to the scene tonight. It's going to be, let's see. What time's the sunset?
Sunset will be at 6:04 p.m. today.
Okay, so 6:04. Yeah, it's going to be getting dark if they went right now. It's 4:50 almost. By the time they get everybody loaded up and over to the to Moselle, which is nearly an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, it would just be too dark. You're in golden hour.
Everyone be seated.
Great for photography, but not the best to see everything accurately. So it looks like it's going to be tomorrow morning for
Any comments you want to make,
review.
Mr. Harpootlian or Mr. Griffin, about Sir Rebuttal?
Sorry.
About Sir Rebuttal. Sir Reply.
He's like, what's that?
No, thank you.
All right.
Oh, they don't want to do it.
So
That means we're done.
we run out of time today as far as the jury view.
First thing in the
We're going
morning.
to take a recess for me to confer with counsel.
Okay, so the recess, we're not done for the day yet. The judge is going to go back in his chambers. He's going to take all the lawyers, apparently. Looks like they're all going. Definitely Mr. Waters and Mr. Harpootlian are going to be back there, probably a couple others. But they're talking about the plans for taking the jury to see the crime scene. As that gets hammered out, the details of how that's going to happen, what's going to happen while they're there, they'll spell it out a lot like Judge Doro did for the jury where they got to see the car. They'll say, we'll bring them here. They'll be presented with this. We'll take them there. They can each walk and look. Each person can walk here and look and type of thing. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to spell out the details so that each juror has the opportunity to view for themselves. And that both sides are okay with what happens. It'll be interesting to see if at this point the defense says, well, I'd like them to see the house, the hunting lodge as well. I want them to see this. I want them to see that. The defense might say, I just want them to see the kennels. We want to see the quail thing, the quail pen. We want to see the dog house, some things that might still be there. That'll be interesting. Why would the money an expert be paid be relevant other than that expensive things tend to be better quality than cheap stuff? Professor Phil Bell, the implication every time that question is asked, regardless of which side asks it, is that, oh, you're getting paid a lot of money, so of course you're going to say what they want you to. That's the implication. And it's ridiculous because the state does that to the defense experts, and the defense does that to the state's experts. And it's not bragging rights. It's never brag about how inexpensive you are, ever. It's just trying to cast doubt and make the other side look bad. Night would be better accuracy for the scene. Yeah, but then they wouldn't be able to see anything. Nicole, that would be... it would be fun to get them the exact same brightness that happens, roughly, what was it, 9 p.m. type thing. But to be accurate, it should be seen in the dark. Murder was done at night. Now can we have a poll? Yes, Sharon. Now we can have a poll. We can have a poll. Let's get a poll. And I want to, I don't want to mess this up. So let's see. We want everyone's opinion here on this one. Okay, so I'm gonna. Should I do Scottish style and improve it and have not proven on there as well? Just 1 second. We'll get this up here. I'm going to add the not proven on there because I know we've had a lot of people ask for that. Okay, finally, we've waited a long time for this poll, but the poll is up right now. We've got 843 people in chat. I expect at least half of you to vote. Otherwise, it's not really a representative analysis here. All right, the votes are starting to come in. We're not going to leave this open for too long. I really can't wait to hear what the judge says about this, the juror review. This is going to be interesting to see what they get to do and how it's going to be managed. But we are finally there. So tomorrow, we've got the juror view. We know that's going to take 2 to 3 hours. So if they go first thing in the morning, or probably if they meet at the courthouse at 9, then they get there, get there by 10 o'clock to Moselle, and they're out of there by maybe 11. Spend an hour there, seeing whatever they need to see or getting arranged. There's probably a lot of sitting on the bus and waiting and making sure things are clear. Anyway, they should be back by lunchtime. So I expect that we have the second half of the day in court, and then we're going to have beginning with juror instruction, and then possibly even closing arguments from both sides. Let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we could have closing arguments all tomorrow, and maybe even enter jury the verdict watch. Maybe we might even have the verdict watch start tomorrow evening, depending on how late this starts. I do expect that the jurors are going to be sequestered once they are beginning their deliberations. So they're not going to be going home. They'll be told to bring a change of clothes, bring a go bag, because they're staying at a hotel. I wonder where the hotel is, because every hotel is like booked up right now because of all the reporters that are visiting and out of town people that are have swarmed on the town. I think this witness saved the day. Phew, says Elizabeth. I want to see the gunroom again, says I'm Puzzleman. I feel like he's not guilty, but I think the jury will be hung, says Douglas. Not really surprised that I'm not using Sir Rebuttal. That testimony is really pretty bad. It also works for the defense. Yeah, they got everything they needed to using the state's rebuttal witnesses. If he's less than 400, he's a winner, says Rich Buddy. How much was he getting paid? I missed that. Jojo Peter, the last one, he had a set retainer of like $2,500 and then charges $100 an hour. He said he originally it was over 100 hours, but then when asked again, it was like about 75 is what I've tracked. But then he stopped getting paid as a consultant and is now being working on a mutual aid agreement. So he's basically getting paid his regular job instead of being paid directly by the defense. So that changed last week. But it sounds like you got about $10,000 on top of ongoing just daily rates. Lil Miss says, I always have a hard time selecting the bottom one. I had to select hung jury instead of not proven because I couldn't select not proven like I wanted to. Don't understand the not proven option. Dallas born, Boston bred. This is an option that we have a lot of viewers that are over in the UK. This is like the Scottish method, I think they said, where you feel that it's guilty, but the state has not proven the case. So it'll be interesting to see the results of this one. The jury see a recreating of the crime scene while at the kennel? No, Puzzlement, they won't, because the two sides can't agree on how it happened. If there was a recreation, each side is going to say, I want it presented a certain way. The defense is going to say, I want it presented with one shooter shooting everybody. And defense is going to say, I need two shooters. I need a sniper up on the hill, and I need this one down here, and we need some 5'2", robot shooters. So, yeah. Never mind. I thought you were asking about how people would vote as a juror. Please show record it. So thanks, Samantha. I appreciate that. If you read this message, who said that? If you read this message, you must make sure you've tapped the like button. I read it. I'll tap the like button. Can I like my own live stream? I'm not even sure if it will let me. I want to say guilty, but I don't feel that they're beyond reasonable doubt. This is Minsky. This is the point. The jury has to decide, have they proven beyond reasonable doubt that Alex Murdaugh committed these crimes? Maybe the defense should offer rooms at that posh place. They had some pretty nice digs for this. Alex Murdaugh was the only other person there, and he lied. This is Carol Connolly. Is that enough for you to make a reasonable inference? Goodman Law Firm, have we entirely sequestered ourselves, or have we seen one or two short clips? I think Nicole was asking about how many people feel that he's guilty after having watched video or some other media coverage of this. Okay, we're going to wrap up the poll here in just a minute, so you've just got a couple seconds. I know some people are watching this and are a little bit behind on the feed. I can see that from some of the comments that are coming in about things that just happened a few minutes ago. But we'll wrap this up here soon and get the results, hopefully before the judge comes out of his chambers. Never brag about your cheapness. The total votes for not guilty, hung, and not proven eclipses the guilty, says Goodman. I haven't looked at the numbers yet. I can't see the numbers until I close it out. Will Bubba and Grady be in their respective kennels to create a more realistic scene? No, thankfully those dogs have I think found forever homes with various and sundry people. I think one of them is at a friend's house, and they've basically been adopted out. I don't believe the state has proven, but Alec committed the murder, says Mary Murphy. To me, it's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, despite the holes in the evidence. If it's the lies Alex told about that night that are the bloody glove in this case. But does the glove fit? Beautiful waterfall. The poll is weird. Can we just have a guilty, not guilty, like jurors have to choose? We could, but then there are people who say, what if they don't all agree? I don't know. No matter what, if we have a guilty, not guilty, we're going to have a hung jury because our jury pool is huge. Okay, we're going to close this out. We're going to take about 10 seconds, and I'm going to close out the poll. Back it to the left says, reality, he's guilty. He should be found not guilty due to reasonable doubt. Outcome will be hung jury. So you want to select all three options. I'm going to close out the poll right now. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the results are. Okay, guilty 44%, hung jury 33%. Not guilty, 11%, and not proven, 10%. That's interesting. I think this is the lowest number we've seen on guilty. We haven't done a lot of polls, but the polls I've seen from other places are that seems pretty low. I think it'll be hung jury. I do as well. What was the outcome of Cash's tale? Eric, I don't know. It might have been like caught in like a closing gate or something like that. It looked like it was swollen, but the dog didn't seem uncomfortable, and with Paul touching the tail and sort of pulling, sort of try to hold it to take a picture of it. So it looked like it was injured, but not like really badly. We're done here. Early state? No, not quite yet. The judge is in chambers talking to the counsel. At least there's some NBA basketball I can watch after work tonight. Sounds good, Jimbo. I have not seen the high-value productions that we're talking to HBO, Netflix. State has not for proven, so it doesn't matter if he's guilty or not, says Gloria. He was there only minutes before they were shot, so yes, guilty for Katerina. I think that he will be a hung jury, but I would vote guilty. How about a poll on how long the jury will be out? Golden Girl, this is going to be tough because this jury of all the trials that to have a notepad, this jury has not had the ability to take notes during this trial. This judge does not give them notes. It's in South Carolina. They're not given notepads by default. I think there's a ability for the foreman to ask the judge if they can have notes, and the judge could decide whether or not then at that point. But they have nothing. So they've just sat there with nothing to go on. They haven't been able to watch anything after the fact. They haven't been able to talk to each other about it. They just have all their own impressions. And now they're going to go deliberate. And so are they going to sit back and say, hey, I want to rewatch. I want to hear this. I want to look at that. I want to see, bring in all the guns. What's going to happen? Or are they going to say, look, I've heard enough. Quick straw poll. How do we feel? Are we all unanimous? Done. That would be amazing if they were all unanimous. But Richard says, I went with not proven. However, in our law system, it's impossible to have not proven guilty. However, I think there should be. Yeah, I sort of adopted the Scottish method. I've been asked for that for several times. Pretty sure hung jury. Wallflower, I think that's a safe bet. I think it's very safe. What do you guys think about the other charge that he picked up, the misdemeanor charge about the John Grisham book that he tried to take to jail with him? He just wanted some light reading. How about people stop telling you what to do? No, it's fine. It takes a lot to offend me here, so I'll take suggestions. How many hung juries before they lose the right to keep trying for a guilty verdict? Really, at Seagulls, it's like how much does the state want to spend trying to prove someone guilty? If they try this and it turns out that there was a hung jury where there's one holdout, I'd say they probably are going to try it again. But if they have a hung jury where there was one holdout, saying that one person was saying that one guy was saying he's guilty, they're like, oh man, we probably won't try this one again. Oh, sorry, I had the audio sounds down. I'll turn those back up here for you. How was he charged for the murders? He was charged. Grand jury heard evidence, some of which was lies, and he was charged and arrested at Alameda. I was on the jury, I would vote guilty based on the video, the phones, and his lies. The boat crash goes to motive. Wow,
And
it's really
Murdaugh
damning.
stole it.
And Alex Murdaugh stole it. Can you look at the burner phone? I just sent a text. Let me check the burner phone, Portland. Let's see here.
Are we going to address subject matter jurisdiction?
Are we? Of course we are. Let's see.
I'm not a cat.
Okay, I've got the burner phone has just been blowing up here, so let me find this. Portland,
Bring jury.
Can you text me again? Can you text me again and put your name in the chat? I'm trying to find the right chat. Just
I'm not
a
a camel.
list of numbers. Let's see. I've got some from Dallas. I've got some from DMB, Golden Mom, Nicole, Goodman
All
Law.
rise. Court is now in session.
You guys are playing the sound effects. For those that are new here, the sounds you're hearing they're triggered by the exclamation point and the words. We have quite a few of those that are pertinent. We don't play them a lot during actual testimony, so we try to just focus on the testimony. But there are quite a few sounds that you guys can trigger that sort of add to the discussion sometimes. And we're going to add some more, probably from this court. Let's see.
You're talking about stuff
There's one
that
right
is
there.
not relevant.
That's a good one.
There's a lawsuit.
There's a lawsuit. Okay, I'm seeing.
know when Murdaugh stole it.
Here it is. Okay, Portland Trailblazers TV. Okay, that's a suggestion on which trial to do next. The Zachariah Anderson trial.
Bring
I'm not
jury.
a camel.
We might do that. Let me take a look. We want to finish this one out. Do you think the financial crimes trial will be before a new trial? Yes, I think they would. And if he's found guilty for that, they might just not try this one. They might just drop this one. He was trying to get John Grisham to sign his book. Great timing on the laughter there, the cackle. Goodman Law has made the only argument that will result in acquittal. Sled lied. Shoddy autopsy.
I'm not a cat.
If they don't watch the Casey Anthony closing arguments, they're incompetent and ineffective. He technically had a warrant, and he was in Florida detox.
There's a
Court-ordered
lawsuit.
agreement then to come to Alameda with his lawyers. Officers met him there to arrest him on the financial charges. He was in custody when charged with murder. Yes,
Alex stole it.
the agreement he had was the court-ordered agreement was then to come with his lawyers. I don't think it was come to Alameda. It was to come straight and turn himself in. Instead, he went to Alameda with Buster. And so officers then arrested him there. That's my understanding. I think because he deviated from that plan, the agreed plan. I doubt the money crimes will amount to more than 10 years. Eric, I'm torn on this
You're
one.
talking about stuff that is not
These are so loud in my ears. I'm not sure are they loud on your side too. I might have to turn them down. I think the charges themselves, 99 of
Bring
them,
the jury.
have the maximum penalty of life in prison without parole. And we're talking about millions of people. We're talking about people who were dying that he stole the money they needed. And the family, after their loved one died, he stole their money. I think they might throw the book at him in these cases. There are so many charges. It's interesting. Back to the left says, Recovery Addict Scott, what is your opinion on the judge's overall performance? I do like Judge Newman. I like his demeanor. I do, even early on in court, it seemed like he was siding with the prosecution a lot. Just on so many of the objections where I thought, usually you want to see, like if you go to a basketball game, what are the odds that one ref, that the refs call all the fouls on one team? They usually don't. And sometimes if it looks that way, they might even get a little more picky and try to balance it out to make it look like it's fair. It just seemed like everything was going the prosecution's way early on. There were a couple times where Judge Newman sort of slapped the hands of the lawyers and, both of them said, hey, this is my courtroom. This, I control this type thing. There was a little bit of that. But on the important stuff, especially when it came to what evidence was admitted into trial, he had an open door policy and everything was allowed in. And he'd just say, okay, they were going to limit this, and then he'd let it in later with the smallest provocation. So I think I do like what he did in addressing everything as it came up. not making all these pre-trial rulings and, ruling in advance. You can't talk about this. You can't talk about that. He wants to see it develop. And as the groundwork's laid and as the situations change, as court is, different, sometimes witnesses say different things and, just the way it comes out is different every single time. And he says, I want to be in that situation before I make a decision. And so I do like that he did that. But I do think he seems to favor the prosecution. I don't know how else to describe that. I wouldn't go so far as to say he didn't call it fair, but he definitely favored the prosecution. Let's see. Great question there. There are some great sound bites from the staircase murder trial, namely the female prosecutor. Girl Next Door, if you have some that you can get a little clip from or send me a time code to the burner phone, that would be awesome. Let me know what it is.
I'm not a camel.
I can export little bits. Let's see. Newman turned a 3-week murder trial into a 7-week trial within a trial within a trial. Content lasagna. Yes, it was painful. It should not have had all the financial crimes in that they did. We heard all the evidence that will be presented.
For now, cigarette, tumbler, glass, red heart, I love you, hand gesture with light skin tone.
Ivan, thank you one more time for a super chat today. That's 3 for you today, man. You're on a roll. I appreciate you, Ivan. Have a great day. Let's see. You think the judge took a nap earlier today? We saw that in the Jensen trial. In Mark Jensen, the judge fell asleep, and there was an objection, and he's up there just getting a little bit of shut-eye, and they had to be like, Your Honor. And he's like, repeat the question. Don't lead the witness. It was sort of funny. But I believe we've learned that it's not actually, subject that doesn't create a mistrial to have the judge fall asleep. It happens, and he's in a very comfy chair, unlike the rest of us who are sitting on these hard benches. I love the kickback talk, taking it easy, and make them work for it sound bites. I do have those. We can put those in.
I was kickback, taking it easy.
By gosh, go down and fight them. By gosh, make them work for it. By gosh, make them work for it.
I just thought I'd interrupt you to wave to my peeps hand with medium light skin tone, making the sign of the horn, standing chick, standing chick, standing chick.
Hey, Tag. Tag's actually the reason we have the peeps sound effect on there that she triggered. It's hard to hear while the voice is talking. It's a little chirp. And it's one of the sounds that is always on, even during trial. We let that one go because it's so unobtrusive, most people will miss it. I think prosecutors could have done a much better job than they did. Cyan, how are you saying that? Suyan? I believe you're right, and especially on the objections early on in trial. I think they should have been more forceful and more frequent. So early on, it just seems like the state got their way and they need to make a lot of objections. I know the judge was ruling against them a lot, but that was where they sort of lost at the very beginning, they lost the direction of the case. They lost control early on, and it hurt them throughout the rest of the trial, I think. Always on go. Thank you. Thank you for the, I believe it's a super sticker or a super chat right there. I appreciate that. Thank you for the super chat. Good to have you here. Love that you have a green courthouse next to your name, too. Lindsay Hendricks says, speaking of architecture yesterday, the house where the staircase case happened, a staircase case, I like that, is some famous and beautiful architecture in North Carolina. Forgot his name, but could easily find. We're talking about the Frank Lloyd Wright type stuff from yesterday. Jensen trial was by us in Kenosha, so Sue Fisher. Yes, that was a spicy trial. We started covering that one. We actually started covering that trial and had to leave because it was I every day I was at risk of losing my YouTube channel for content violations. It's like I don't, 1 minute we're talking about, some dull video, and the next minute they're talking about a notepad on his desk. And we're like, whoa, where did that go? It was almost like that trial down in, I think it was Florida, where someone got hacked in to the Zoom room and started playing inappropriate videos on the courtroom video monitor, which was in view for the cameras. Crazy. Yeah, that was a fun day as well. He refuses to admit that he did it. He also, oh my goodness. Wow, Little Miss, that's awful. Ivan, next time I get called to jury duty, I'm bringing a blanket. Ellen, we've got we've got a couple people that are called to jury duty right now here in our group that are just about to find out if they get to be the lucky ones or the unlucky ones, depending on how things go. Disappointed in the state's case, but not surprised. I'm not sure if this is. Let's see who this is. Hang on one second. Well, that was disappointing. They said goodbye as soon as I picked up. So I thought it was someone calling on the burner phone. I'm not sure how they got through the do not disturb, but let's see. Look up Judge Donald Thomason from Oklahoma. There was a whoosh whoosh sound coming from under the bench.
All rise. Court is now in session.
The court is not actually in session. We're sitting right here waiting. Might be in session soon, but so far nothing. We do have the audio turned on from the courtroom, so as soon as something happens, we're going to hear it. Don't have a dolphin sound effect yet, Rando. Maybe that's something we need to do. True Celtic Mutt says, never will have to serve jury duty. A couple of you guys have that distinction on the record that allows you to get out scot-free of jury duty service. Let's see. Oh, the Zoom incident. Yes, we remember the Zoom incident well. It happened. I missed it, honestly. I missed it, and you guys were like, did you guys see what you just showed on the screen? And I immediately had to cancel the live stream for the day, go back and delete it off my account. But the big channels that were showing it kept it up. It's still up to this day. You can still find that video out there, which is just like, wow, YouTube. Amazing. Best part about being a felon in Wisconsin, no jury duty, says Ivan. I have a second notice with... Hey, I think we're coming back. Yep, we are. Okay, let's hear what the judge has to say here. I'm going to turn down the audio sound effects just so we can focus on this.
Be seated.
Okay, that's the end of all of the testimony. I don't know whether or not another motion or matter of law needs to be addressed at the end of the reply.
Yes.
Do you need to preserve the record any further?
No, sir.
All right.
I would take that chance.
So
if the judge offered that to me, I would preserve the record.
Jury charges, also the jury view.
I would say I wish to renew all of our standing objections.
Yes, sir.
We just want to, I'm not sure I've read a case on this, but renew all previously made motions
there we go.
Concerning directed verdict. So
Fifth Amendment.
Them. I'm not going to argue the grounds.
Yes, sir. That's what I was suggesting, and to preserve the record. And
okay.
The court denies any motions regarding dismissals or directed verdicts. So we need to have the jury come.
Well,
you bring the jury.
There we go. I was going to say there's only one person who could make that happen, Your Honor, and that is you. How many days will they argue over the jury instructions? I think they'll hammer that out probably here today. There'll probably be some stuff sent to the judge this evening after we break, and they'll agree to something that will be read in the morning or read after the jury view. Jensen was creepy. Back to the left. I wonder why that shows up. The jury was quick. They were waiting right outside the door.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have now heard all of the testimony and received all of the evidence in the case, and we are essentially done for the day. But when you return tomorrow morning, we're going to have an escort take you all to the subject property, Moselle, to have a jury view of the location. And I will be there as well to ensure things go as they should. But I need to instruct you as to how it happens. and give you this instructions, and that is that you'll be taken to the scene of the alleged crimes, and while you are on your way to the scene and from the scene, you are not allowed to discuss the case with anyone, including your fellow jurors, and you're not allowed while there to ask any questions of anyone who may be there, including any law enforcement personnel or any other court officials. If you have any questions, you can only ask me.
Through the foreman.
You still have not heard closing arguments and have not begun deliberating. So the way tomorrow is expected to go, you will come, you have the jury view. After the jury view, you'll return for closing arguments. Then I will instruct you as to the law that you are to apply. Then you will deliberate in an effort to reach a verdict. But it's absolutely essential that you understand that you're being taken there to view the scene. Now, it has been a year and a half or more since June 7th of 2021, since the alleged crime occurred, and things have changed, or most likely have changed. We have different season of the year, just change of circumstances as far as the property is concerned. So you have to take that in mind and certainly consider that, but still it's the same location, and I've determined that it would be beneficial to you to be able to observe the scene that everyone has been talking about. And we'll do that tomorrow morning. So I want we'll prepare to leave now. I'm going to have you go back to the jury room and talk with the bailiff for a moment, and then you all will be dismissed for the day, and I'll instruct the personnel to take you directly to the scene at the designated time tomorrow morning, which would be 9:30. Do you all get here before 9:30, like 9 o'clock? So we'll say 9:30, but you may leave before 9:30.
I expect like taco trucks to line up alongside the road at Moselle.
So we'll see how that works tomorrow morning. So if you'll go to the jury room now, and we'll prepare to dismiss for today, and we'll see you all after the view tomorrow morning. So if you go to the jury room.
Okay, so this is exciting. I don't think the jury's excited about this. I think they're happy that it's over. I think all the jurors are relieved that this has come to an end, as this has just gone too far. Moselle is sold. I don't know if they've transferred the deed yet. It still showed under contract last I saw, Kelly, but so I'm not sure. But apparently they've arranged whoever they did sell it. I think it went for like $3.9 million or somewhere around there. So, but all that money got divided up among the people that are owed it.
Okay, as I stated, the scene will be secure, and the law enforcement will ensure that no one is there to distract or to interfere with the jury view. I'm going to administer an oath to the people who will be transporting the jury, bailiffs, deputies, whoever they are.
It's the FAA.
Danny Gregory, if y'all will come forward now. Danny Gregory, Reuben Carter,
these are the civilian
Bill
bailiffs.
Polk, and Taylor Flynn. All right, I'm going to give you all an oath. If y'all will come and stand, and I'll administer the oath to you.
Shotgun drone patrol.
All right, and if you first just state your names.
Reuben Carter.
Taylor Flynn.
Daniel Gregory.
Bill Polk.
All right, if you all raise your right hands, please. Do you swear that you will keep the jurors during the time you escort them to the property on Moselle or at Moselle, and you'll return them to the jury room, and that you will now allow no person to speak to them, including yourself, while you have them in your custody, unless the court otherwise gives you permission? If you accept that oath, please say I do.
I do.
All right. Thank you very much. And as I've said to the jury, the plan is to, since I've told them now about the jury review, is that when they meet in the morning, I intend to go and maybe the clerk or two of the court folks.
What about the defendant?
But we'll go there prior to the jurors, prior to them coming here. Any questions about anything? Okay. Very good. And Mr. Pope, I'm going to speak to you for just a second. To you for a second. I think it was just Mr. Pope, right?
Okay. Okay. I think this is going to be another circus tomorrow. We have jurors going to be at a known location in public. Okay. With a known route. They're going to come here to the courthouse and they're going to travel to Moselle. That's a known route. There's so much interest in this trial, especially as we get to the end of the trial. There's so much interest. It grows every single day. More people are interested. More people are flooding the courthouse for the sort of the spectacle. They want to see the Murdaughs come in and out of the courtroom. And they clearly want to be part of this in some way. They've got their cell phones. That's why we have the crowds and the fences and the support that they do around the courthouse. It's all
right. I'm going to meet with the lawyers and discuss jury charges. Anything else before we adjourn for the day?
Your Honor. Not for him to stay, Your Honor.
All right, very well. We're in adjournment. Let's see. Now, I want to say adjourn till 9:30, but we'll have the
jury review is going to take at least 2.
We need the court reporters. If you all stand by, we're going to adjourn until 10:30. We're not adjourning. We're going to discuss jury charges.
I guess what I'm saying is, if we go out there, and I mean, I understand we're allowed to go out there and watch the jury if they look at things and not speak with them. You think they'll be back here by what time?
I'm thinking 10:30.
They're going to leave here at 9:30?
Maybe before 9:30. We're going to figure all that out, but we may not be back exactly at 10:30, but we're going to shoot for 10:30.
I thought it was
maybe
45
11
minutes.
o'clock.
Yes, sir.
Maybe 11:30.
Well, we'll be out
let's say 11 o'clock. How about that?
Okay.
It's soon not.
I mean, I don't know. It's whenever we get back, really.
Basically, if I'm at Moselle with the jurors and they're not, it takes 25 minutes to get there. They're going to be probably there for an hour, 25 minutes. So that's about 2 hours total. I just didn't want to have to.
We'll say 11 o'clock.
That'd be great. Thank you.
11 o'clock. Yeah.
Everybody in Alex's van. We're all headed to Moselle. Rick, that would be crazy.
And we'll be in adjournment until we.
Arguing when they get back, arguing and charging tomorrow.
Yes, argue, charge.
I'm surprised they haven't addressed whether
tomorrow.
Mr. Murdaugh has the right to be there.
All righty then.
All right. Very good. And whether we deliberate will depend upon what time argument ends.
All right. So that's how it ends. Can we stop at Dairy Queen, please? This is going to be crazy. I don't know how they can go ahead and do this tomorrow and not have it turn into a circus with the public who are interested in the area, who know exactly where this is at. Everyone knows the address. Everyone's seen the maps. Everyone's seen the route that you drive to get there. I don't know how they can proceed with that and not have people holding signs on the side of the road trying to influence the jury. People with cameras, high-speed cameras, long lenses, whatever it takes, trying to get a shot of what's going on the property. People with drones flying over the property, just trying to film it. We know that those have happened already. Private people have just flown drones over the area, and I believe in South Carolina it's legal So unless the FAA does a temporary flight restriction, puts a TFR in place over that area, which, I mean, they could, but I've never heard that have been done for a county court for something like that. Yeah, welcome to the circus is for real. Oh man, yeah, it wouldn't be awkward at all. Everyone pile in the van. We'll lock the doors behind you, and we'll drive you to Moselle. They preserved no appellate issues. Yeah, they didn't say anything about the Fifth Amendment or anything like that. Insane. John Marvin is prepping the property. Maybe he'll have like hors d'oeuvres and everything out for people, and little snacks, bug spray, just a little grab and go bag. How on earth are they going to pull this off? It's probably going to be like a school bus type scenario, but more of like a prison bus. I think it will be a prison bus. There'll be like shackles on the floor, and they're like, "Don't worry about the shackles. You don't have to wear those as we travel there." Maybe they've got some rentals. Maybe a couple. A good 15 passenger van might be enough. How many jurors did we lose? You're gonna need 2 bailiffs with the jurors. So however many jurors we have, including the alternates, because one could still get dismissed tomorrow. They all have to go. Judge is screwed up big time. Does Alex get to go? I would think he would, but nobody mentioned it. Alex should not be allowed to go. A lot of times the defendant has the right to see, the proceedings of the trial against him. He is not guilty according to the law right now, so he has the right to all of this. So I believe he should be allowed to go if he wanted to. He may not want to be there. But if he does go, I think, he should not be given the opportunity to present anything, including an emotional outburst in the presence of the jurors there. If I was one of those jurors, I would be upset doing that and not feel safe down the road. Can the jurors sing your road trip songs on the bus? The wheels on the bus go round and round. Yeah, John Marvin shouldn't be allowed there. Sorry. John Marvin hasn't done anything wrong, and if he's in charge of the property, he might have to let them in or unlock the gates, depending on how it's been secured. Let's go on a field trip. It'll be fun, they said. What could happen, they said. Lady Writer. Famous last words, right? Okay, so what's going to happen tomorrow? We're going to do our regular morning show in the morning. We're going to start at 9 a.m. Eastern time. I'm in North Carolina, so that's when we're going to go live. We'll probably do a summary of what's happened in court, about where we are in this case, what the jurors are going to look at, things that stood out. We might be able to wake up some of our friends on the West Coast. Maybe Nicole might be up early enough to talk to us then. Maybe Matthew Harris from Texas might be able to pop on and give us some legal perspective on some of these things, as we are really seeing the last few minutes of this trial before the jury gets to deliberate. The trees have grown, everything's grown, filled in, etc. It's different. I mean, the road quality, it might have been graded since then or repaired. Lots of things that the jury might notice on the way out there that might not be the same as they were the day of. Let's see. Presumed innocent but still accused, still a suspect, so not at all the same status as not guilty. Will there be spicy bourbon pickles there tomorrow? There better be, or I'm not going, Dick's gun. Janice P. says they should be allowed to go in the house to see if they can hear a gunshot with TV on. Really? I mean, get like, I'm not sure what they were watching, if it was like The Masked Singer or something. Let's start playing that in the house. Let's get the AC going. Everyone huddle up in the gun room, and then we'll shoot a few hogs down by the kennels with varying guns and see what you guys hear. Good luck with the summary. Just saying. Oh, Meanie Banana, I was going to hope you would do the summary. So, I'll jump on. Just let me know when. Let's. I think we're up right now. Let me just see. Give me just 1 second. Mrs. RA is not available right now, so I can't do one like that. Let's see. Let's close this one down. Okay, if you want to jump on, Nicole or Matthew, anyone who has, or even Weather Watch, anyway, I should be able to bring you guys on right now. So we'll see. Cameras on. Okay. All right. Is it working? Let's see, who's this one? Okay, we've got a little dilemma. I have a key to a building that somebody needs to get inside, and only I have the key. It requires a pass that is in my possession and requires me to be present to unlock. So here's what we're going to do. Let's wrap up for tonight. We've had a long day. The judge gave us basically an early pass out. Not really early, but let's wrap this up. Let's come back here in the morning, 9 a.m. We're going to talk about this and get caught up. We'll get everything ready. Let's see. Somebody's just popping on right now. Oh, it's Nicole. Hey, Nicole, how are you doing? Give me just 1 second. Can you hear me? Just 1 second here. All right, there's Nicole. Got you there. Nicole, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Make sure my mic is turned up. I don't want to make it too loud and like blow you out, but did that make any difference either way?
It's good. You're good right there. I can hear you just great.
What? Great.
Are you excited? Verdict Watch is coming soon.
I am, and I think this is the time where attorneys reflect on jury selection, because that's where it matters. We'll do the reasonable doubt one when your wife is around, because I would love to get her perspective on a couple things. But as far as jurors, there's two different kinds of jurors, and in looking for jurors as a trial attorney, you're not looking for jurors necessarily that are on your side, like most people think.
Yeah.
You only need maybe one or two that are on your side, and then the rest of your jurors have to be, this is horrible to say, but they're sheep.
They can be led. Yeah.
I know it's horrible, but that's sort of the description. So yeah, they can be led. So if you, for example, if you have someone in your jury box that through questioning will admit that they will go along with the group, you want more of those, and then one or two that you can convince you're correct, so that the others will follow along. If you have someone that's super strong that's against you, that's where it's sort of make or break, because that person, whether it's for the state or the defense, isn't going to budge. So that's your hung jury, which obviously defense in these kind of cases is going to want more. Yeah. So yeah, that's sort of what it.
So the attorneys, all the attorneys tonight are not going to sleep. They're like, should we have passed on this jury? Should I have? Did we do the right thing? They'll know soon.
Yeah, it's not so much thinking about your jury. Sorry, my hair is like I'm a mess. It's not so much about that. This is where that is important. This is where that comes into play. But the only thing that jury trial attorneys that litigate regularly do after a jury trial is go back over and critique everything you did. Should I have done this differently? Should I have done that differently? That's what they'll be doing for the next few days till they get a verdict or a hung jury.
Well, Nicole, I absolutely hate to do this because I know you got on it. I've got something. I need to run. I need to literally hop in my car and drive somewhere right now. It's going to be a fun day tomorrow. We're going to have some time to talk. Maybe if you're available tomorrow morning before trial starts, that would be amazing. I appreciate your input. This is going to be exciting. So just
throw me a text of what time you want me on so I can make sure I'm up.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Thank you very much, Nicole. Thanks for coming on short notice. Thanks to everybody. Yep, we'll see you. Have a good one. Okay, appreciate Nicole so much for that. I'm gonna wrap this up here, which means I need to play some music really fast right there. You guys, it's been fun today. It's going to be even more fun tomorrow. So please, when you go home, hug the people you love, smile at someone, make their day just a little bit better. And please stay safe till we go live tomorrow morning. It's going to be 9 a.m. Please ring the bell, subscribe. We'll see you tomorrow. We're going to be in Verdict Watch before you know it. South Carolina versus Alex Murdaugh. It's coming to a head. Thank you all. Have a great night. We'll catch you later.